open session from closed session. We have nothing to report out. Do we have any public participation on non-agenda items this evening? Okay, with seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there anything we need to move, table? Nobody's making eye contact with me. Okay, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I move we approve the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
And is somebody taking?
Somebody?
Yes. Did you get an agenda? You said you brought an agenda.
I did.
I'll just write on the agenda. So it was 5:05 when we called the meeting to order originally. And then 6:05 when we came back from closed. Okay. And so Mary made the motion and the second?
That's me.
Okay, Diana? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And patriotic exercise, Trustee Mattson is home ill this evening, so we will go along with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll move on to acknowledgements. So Becky, at this time.
Becky's here.
I know.
We're just trying to. Hello, everyone. We're trying to work out our technical difficulties. So, acknowledgements. We have a donation of $1,500 to Redwood Preschool from the Mendocino Coast Children's Fund, a donation of $1,500 to Redwood Elementary School from the Children's Fund, $2,000 to Dana Gray from the Children's Fund, $2,000 for Fort Bragg Middle School from the Children's Fund, $4,000 from Fort Bragg High School for the Children's Fund, and $1,500 to Noyo High School. And it's for emergency funding. So thank you so much, Children's Fund, for supporting all of our sites and all of our schools. Thank you, thank you. Karen Youngblood had a donation of $100 to be used towards nutrition services. And Flockworks, bless their soul, they provided us a really great book. If you have the chance to come in and look at it at the district office, we have it on the display table. But it is every lesson that was done last year at Dana Gray with great, vibrant pictures. It's pretty impressive. Have you seen it, Mr. Kale?
I have indeed.
It's pretty exciting stuff, let me tell you. A must-read for all. So thank you, Flockworks, for the great work that you've been doing with Dana Gray. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So the next we'll share communication. I'll start. I always go last, but maybe I'll start this time. So the first thing is the CSBA asked us for nominations for a couple positions. Unfortunately, I think our rural area, we don't know people that fit very specific criteria, so we didn't have one. We received a letter from a grandparent, that was going to Dr. Phil about grandparents taking care of their grandchildren and the burden that is. So she gave us a copy of that letter. And then we also received something about the no waste movement that's happening in the community. And I believe that she is working with Becky on the proper venue for that discussion. And then also we got a letter from a registered dental hygienist about the opportunity to put that in our schools. And there's a grant that could be looked at if we had the resources to work on that. So those were the things I received.
I got the same ones.
I had as well, and then I actually reached out to the Zero Waste Mendocino, and she wanted to offer anyone, I'm sure, in the public, but our board if they wanted to go to a house for, do a tour of zero waste options.
Wow.
So I said that we couldn't all probably meet at once because that would be a quorum, but that if anyone is interested, you could talk to me and we could try to coordinate so that we're 2 and 2 or make it a public meeting. You know, I don't know what the option is, which was very kind. And then we all received our CSBA September booklet. I got mine in the mail today, and there's an attendance playbook, Smart Solutions for Reducing Chronic Absenteeism, and they have some highlights here, but I just wanted to let everyone know to kind of peek. There's some sort of a 20 strategies that maybe we can share at each site, but we're doing quite a few of the positive messaging, using school buses, improving school climates with greetings, nudging parents and students by sending reminders, and trying to survey to find out, messaging and motivating to attend more school regularly. And then I keep getting messages from EdSource about Governor Newsom maybe he struck a deal for education construction bond. So that may be on the ballot in March, and it's a kind of a first come, first serve the way it's rolling out, which is difficult when you're a small district, because usually the bigger districts are able to get their applications in, and obviously the money's K-14, and then it's either new construction or modernization. So it'll be interesting to just kind of be looking out for that and what that means, and if we're able to utilize that.
Okay, anything else? Anyone else receive communications from anybody?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, I'm just making myself a note, sorry. Okay. All right, how about any public participation on any agenda items this evening? Again, you can speak now or during the meeting. Okay. All right, so we'll move swiftly along here to board reports. This is the reports for us, the first one, and what we have done in the last month since school started. I didn't start. Oh, have some. No, I started last time. Let's go. How about you, Scott?
All right.
We'll start on.
I don't have much. Attended a cross-country meet, or practice meet, I guess, yesterday. Beautiful day up in Bald Hill. That was fun. Just saw an email with it. We have some homework assignments for the upcoming training next week.
Yes, we do.
For Masters in Governance, so that's good. And just want to thank all the staff, teachers, for all their hard work in the first month of school and trying to get through all the hurdles and making it work for everyone, so thank you.
So I completed my 4 Keenan training. I don't know how many the teachers have to complete, but very stimulating, new videos, new language. So that was exciting. I attended the middle school Redwood Indiana Gray open house, and it was very exciting. Everyone seems engaged, parents, teachers, staff. I mean, it's just, it really was, even for the beginning of the year rolling out, there was a lot of great presentations from teachers, and families seemed very excited to meet everyone. What else? And I also went to the library at the high school for the FFA fair display, and those were really nice. There were 4, and they all, I wish I could combine them, like somehow merge them all together, because some had a really strong art, some had really strong information, and some just, the ease, were aesthetically, the presentation was really nice, and each of them had areas that they could have molded, and so I could see, talking myself into one or the other, it was very hard to rate because they were all lovely in different ways. Middle School Parents Club was on the first day of school, which was very difficult for all of us, but it was well attended. That was very nice to see new families. And I met with Mary about an evaluation tool over the summer, or between our meetings, actually, not over the summer, after our meeting.
It's a blur.
It is a blur.
It is.
Seems like a long, short summer. And I also talked to Kathy on the phone about our poor Anna's traveling and having a great time and just trying to find out who's our point person when we have revisions or so I talked to Kathy before our meeting, and Tim Anderson, I guess this could have been in communications, he highlighted an article featuring
yes.
Avid in US Today, and it was a
Forgot
nice
that.
article, and
Thank
I
you.
thank you for sharing that. And I did have a parent talk about cafeteria and plastics that are being used or not used and how that's evolved over time. And I told her that I think Pilar and possibly Becky Walker were in communication with, and I don't know if that was why the like you said, with waste, zero waste, how they talked at the city council, and maybe that spurred some conversation about, how do we do things at home and school? And I said that they could communicate.
And we did. And she's actually has a meeting with Pilar and Julie.
Great. Thank you.
So I, as well, went to all 3 open houses. That is a crazy week. But yes, buzzing around, lots of excitement at all 3 schools. It was really great. Went to the first Stand and Gray Parents Club meeting, and there was great attendance, so that was nice to see. My children are gone, and, it seems volunteerism has been declining the last several years, but it seemed like and I heard not quite as many last night or Tuesday night, but still really good turnout, so that's great. And then I went and judged the FFA booths as well. It's kind of sad that only one of them gets judged at the fair, but they looked really nice. And then this morning, Diana and Becky and I hosted our first board chat. So our intent is to have an open forum where anyone from the community can come and visit with us and talk either about an agenda topic or really anything that is of concern that's within our purview. I mean, there's certain things that we would have, but it was great because we did have a parent this morning visit us, and it really was some things that Becky, it wasn't our, it's not board policy and it's not. But it was great that you were there to be able to hear that too. So, because I imagine a lot of things will come that really are just, that's what's happening in the trenches where the,
But I feel like we're the SOS and say, oh, that's actually not an issue we can deal with, but, we can lead them to the next level, I thought it was a nice venue, very casual.
I had coffee and treats, and then we'll meet just anybody that's watching. We will be there the Thursday of the board meetings at 7:45 to 8:45 in Joanne's old office or the new district conference room. So if we feel that we were trying to get it early enough that staff could swing in, but we don't think it does with the contract. So if the staff does want to come see us, we can swing that down too. But we're hoping, like with coffee and the principal and things, kids get dropped off, they can swing over and give us some feedback if they'd like. So,
and just a shout out to that parent who joined us this morning. That was pretty cool. I wasn't expecting anyone. And thank you to Mrs. Vieira who came by also.
All right.
So that was exciting.
Okay.
Okay, so I also went to all the back-to-school nights, which was really fun to see everybody, and everybody seems very excited and happy to be back. I went to each of the school sites on the first day of school, which I've never got to do before, and I feel like it was a really smooth start to the year. Everybody's very excited, and I was impressed. Talked to a lot of the new intern teachers at back-to-school night, and they all said teaching is way harder than they ever realized, but I didn't talk to anybody who was sorry they were doing it, so that was nice to hear. They were pretty excited to be there and loving their kids, so that was awesome. I attended the Prop 68 joint meeting with FBUSD, so Becky Walker and myself, and Barry was there, right? Was Barry there? Okay, I can't remember. And MCRPD.
I don't think he was.
Okay, it's grant funds for recreation projects specifically for us to look at our ball fields, which, as we all know, some are sinking and they're all getting pretty old, like me. Okay, anyway, moving on. And then, as Diana said, we had a meeting with Becky, and Diana and I met previously, and then we met with Becky. I attended coffee with the principal at Redwood and was super impressed. Lundy, being a brand new principal, handled it beautifully, and she kept having to move because more and more people came in. We ended up with 20 parents, well, one grandparent, but the rest were parents. And it was great. It was handled really well, and everybody seemed happy. So, and she's doing a great job. I met with her yesterday. We had a meeting, and it's hard to be, just like a new teacher, it's hard to be a new principal. But she is handling it really with a lot of grace and
Doing a great job.
really doing a great job. Yeah. So that's it.
All right. And now that I'm just thinking, hearing about you meeting with Redwood, I think because we're missing our school board rep, if we can try to get in the habit of checking in with our principals so that we can do that report on the behalf of our once student rep. So everybody knows what site they have, right? So maybe for the next meeting, if we can check in with a couple days before and.
Right, so I know that at middle school, there's a survey for parents that you can click on the homepage.
That's been closed.
It's closed.
Because I'm reporting on it tonight.
Okay, yes.
Yep.
So it's, the family involvement survey. And there was some
First
other.
There's a
is
dance.
tomorrow.
First dance.
First dance, big deal.
I think there's the school council, the student council. They're having their speeches tomorrow. So that's a few highlights. And volleyball, of course, is in full swing.
First home game is Tuesday.
Yes. First home game is on Tuesday, the 17th.
And just for all parents, the grading period at Fort Bragg High School and Fort Bragg Middle School closes on Friday, September 20th. So check those grades on Aries. They're about to come out.
And since we're saying things like that, for Redwood parents, really looking for site council people. If you want to come and have a voice and hear what's going on, we need people.
Okay. All right, thank you. So that moves us on to the superintendent's report, and the first one is this family involvement survey.
Pretty fun stuff. So I sent all of you the PowerPoint as well, and Wendy has it, bless her soul. So just F5. Oh, okay. So part of our accountability is that we have to do some family questionnaires and surveys to see what folks are thinking and doing. We've been doing the same survey for the last 2 years, so this is the third time it's come out. So we'll show you the results. What I did, instead of giving you the pretty bar graphs, which I know people at home will be devastated with, if you could go to the first one, please. What I did is I took all 3 years worth of data, put it side by side so we could look at it. Now, obviously, the first year in 2017, we had 116 responses, but notice that that doesn't add up to 116. People kind of, we added that slide in late, and we talked about it 2 years ago, but you may not remember that. So, and then in 2018, people were really good about responding, but remember that we have people responding with multiple children. So that's why it doesn't add up to 119. And this year, we did a much better job. We had 189 different people fill out the survey. So this was our grandest year yet. Pretty exciting stuff here. So thank you to all the principals for getting this at your back to school nights and at your registration. So it was good. So let's go to the next slide. The first question is, my involvement in my child's education is valued. So I put the percentage of the respondents. And then what I did at the bottom is I put the percents of 4s and 5s. So 6, if you answered 6 meant I can't answer this question, or it was like an NA. So that's why I put 6 at the top. Okay. 1 is strongly disagree. 2 disagree, 3 neutral, 4 agree, 5 strongly agree. So what I did is I put the percent of how people responded in those, and then I added up the 4s and 5s. Because what we really want to know is how many people agreed or strongly agreed with the question, right? And then you could see the growth over time. So in 2019, of the 189 people who responded, almost 80% agreed or strongly agreed that my involvement in my child's education is valued at my school. So that's good stuff. And anyway, so 3 years worth of time, this is what we have. So we'll go to the next question, which is, I'm involved or attend a decision-making committee at site or district level, site council, board meetings, ELAC, those types of things. Only about 1 in 4 of our families do that, which makes a whole lot of sense. And when we're all kind of trying to struggle and fight for the same people to come in or get more people in. This is one of the reasons, so. A little bit of growth, not tremendous though. Next, please, sorry. Don't mean to sound like I'm ordering. Next. I am asked what I value about my school. I appreciated the growth of this question. So half of the respondents agreed or strongly disagreed, so that felt good. I'm invited to meetings at school or district and asked to contribute to discussions. I believe my voice matters. There was market growth in this. So the more people you get responding to a survey, the good news about that, it takes the legitimacy of the survey to a higher level. So I was really impressed that we had 189 people respond, and this question felt good. So next, I'm invited to help plan family involvement activities. Little over half agree or disagree. Growth still, so that was good. My child's school is a safe place to learn. This was a great question that felt good to me. So my child's school respects all cultures and diversity. That was nice growth. That felt good. When I volunteer at the school, I am given training and resources to do my task well if needed. This is improved, but it talks to us as school administrators. When people improve, when people come and volunteer, do we provide training? Usually not. We're so excited to get someone through the door. Here, go to that room and just help the teacher. So that's something that we could look at and work on.
But hardly anybody disagreed.
Well, and 25% of the folks who responded said, I can't answer that question because I'm not in the classroom. So of the people who did, it wasn't a bad question nonetheless. Parent meetings and activities at the school or district always have translation services so I don't miss out on the information or discussion. Well, 30% of our parents couldn't answer it because they probably don't ask for translation services. And the ones who did, I appreciated that they said it was provided. So that felt good. But I wonder how many bilingual or Spanish-speaking parents filled out this survey, because that's the other thing. I don't know if we offered the Spanish this survey in Spanish. So Anna's on vacation. I couldn't ask her that, but that would be a key question. It was in Spanish?
It was translated.
Yes.
The questions were both in English.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Mr. Kale and Ms. Gray. That's fantastic. So it was in Spanish. So that's a legitimate question then. Excellent. Good job, Mr. Kale. Good job, Flora. I am invited to meetings so that I can learn more about what is going on in the school. Thank you, Aries All Call. Yes, you are invited, and you are invited by email, text message, phone, any way we can get a hold of you. I receive information on what I can do at home to help my child improve or advance his or her learning. There was improvement on this too. I think one of the things that really has made a difference in the homes is that Benchmark Everyday Math, Go Math, there are online learning components now that parents can actually log into, so I think that's been good. When my child's school communicates with me, it is easy for me to read or understand. This I appreciated, so I was happy to see that response. I have been given different options or ways that I can be involved with the school, either at school itself, at home, or in the community. There was a big improvement here, so that was good. I'm given information about community services that help with families' needs, health, mental health, counseling, etc. This is a tough one because our services change so much in our community and we have so much turnover in some of our resources that sometimes they become more difficult to access. But it's something we absolutely need to work on. If I have a question, concern, or comment about my child, the teacher or principal gets back to me right away. I appreciated seeing this. So there was improvement here. We could still work on it though. I receive information on what my child should learn and be able to do in each grade in school. Almost 3/4. Again, something we can continue to work on and making sure that the right families are getting that. If your kid's at grade level, then this question isn't going to pertain to you, right? So things we can improve on. My child's teachers adjust their teaching style to meet the academic needs of my child. Something, again, we can work on. A little over half agreed, but something we can strive to improve. I believe my child is challenged by the school's academic curriculum. Again, something we can improve on. Over half agreed but 2/5 of the parents were either neutral, didn't agree, or didn't answer. So something we can work on. My child receives the academic support needed to meet his or her individual needs. Receiving academic support to meet their needs. We have 2/3 who believe and agree with that, and 1/3 who we need to reach, which makes sense, because if we have 1/3 of our learners struggling, I can see their parents saying, my kid needs more support, so we'll work on that. My child's teachers hold high expectations for my child. I appreciated the improvement in the response on this, considering that we had more people respond. So high expectations is a good thing, so. My child's teachers asked to meet with me face-to-face at least once a year to talk about how my child is doing. We did not ask this question in the last 2 years, which is why there's no response from the last 2 years. But in this year, when we did ask it, over 3/4 said, yes, we agree with that statement. And then my child's school is a friendly environment for students, parents, and families. This was not asked in previous years in this way. And this particular question didn't have, and I can't, it did not have number 6 as an option.
Oh.
So we forced people to give a response on that. What I appreciated about it is that 4/5 of our respondents said that they agree. So that's the survey for this year. It was nice to see that we had more people respond. Dana Gray was the chicken winner there, chicken dinner winner, because they had more people than anyone. When you went to Dana Gray's back to school night, there were computers everywhere. And I think that's why they had the largest number of parents participate in that, so thank you for that. The nice thing was we did have parents from every site, so that was good. Questions on the survey? This will be available online in the minutes. I've given it to Anna so that they can be printed if folks would like to look over it again. Next up, we have the nutrition report from Pilar Gray. And I did email you last night Pilar's report.
Did you want this up?
Not necessary. I mean, you can if you want, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So I'm Pilar Gray, Director of Nutrition Services. Gosh, that seems so... That's a little intense. Thank you. I'm here to report about, how we're getting off to a new start. We have a lot of new programs going on in the district this year. I just want to disclose, we only have 13 days of data so far to report. In your report, the last 2 pages give you all the detail of it so you could eke it out. And basically what I did is I took August of this year compared to August of last year, and also took August of this year and compared to for the entire year of 18-19, the daily averages and stuff like that, to try to extract as much as I can with only having 13 days of data so far. So a little bit of caution in what I'm saying, but we're off to a really great start. So the first most exciting, I think, change for this school year was going to community eligibility provision, where now all of our kids get to eat for free. I'm just absolutely jazzed about it. I couldn't be more happy. Overall, what we've seen so far in those averages I was telling you about, we're serving about 57 more breakfasts a day and about 89 more lunches per day. One of my biggest concerns with switching to CEP was how is it going to play out in numbers, because your reimbursements come to you in a different manner. So I had to wait till I can get the reimbursements in to give you these numbers, but so far we're doing a $717 a day average increase to our reimbursement. So it's gone up, which is what we wanted. If that holds throughout the year, we're looking at about $129,000 more. Again, we only looking at 13 days. We'll see how it goes, but so far, yes. Good news. Happy. The other big change we made was shifting our snack programs at Redwood and Middle School to a supper program, which we're calling Super Snack. We had supper at Dana Gray, but we've revised it from cooking meals to doing the Super Snack model, which we discussed last year. What I'm seeing so far is we're not seeing a significant change to the number of students that are being served at these sites, which is still about the same for both of the sites. The feedback I'm getting from Redwood and Middle School who went from the snack to the Super Snack is the kids are liking the snack better. It's more food, it's better food. We're now able to provide vegetables and more components, because basically we have to provide all the components of a meal. So they're getting a protein, they're getting a grain, they're getting a fruit, they're getting a vegetable, and they're getting milk. So they've got all that going on. So they're liking having more food, they're liking what they're getting, they're enjoying it. So that's really exciting. The staff is unhappy with the trash of the packaging that generates, because we are using, a lot of packaged things. It has to be served by the kudos department, not necessarily by my nutrition services folks, so it requires prepackaged items, and with that comes trash. Some of the kudos staff are frustrated by the paperwork because it's a more complicated program. They have to account for more. They have to, adjust to that. But I think we're okay now. We did a little bit of shift in who is doing it from the kudos people. And it's really convenient because my staff member, Dolores, who actually puts all the snacks together, who used to do the supper at Dana Gray, she's now doing the super snack for all the 3 sites. She also works for kudos. And so she does it at Dana Gray, and she's also been running to Redwood before her Dana Gray shift to do it there, to actually do the service. So that smoothed that out. Our Dana Gray kiddos who changed from the supper to the super snacks say they like the new snacks, but they preferred the fresh cooked meals, mostly the things like the smoothies, things like that, the burgers, but they're happy with the snack. Interestingly, this is one place we are seeing an increase in participation. We're getting a lot, some more kids coming in to take these snacks. And Dolores gets to work very closely with these kids, not only on the food end, but also as a teacher's aide in the classroom, so she knows them. And I'm like, well, Dolores, what do you think? And we suspect it's because the super snack is more transportable. The kids can grab that bag and run, as opposed to trying to, wolf down a bowl of minestrone soup and then get on the bus. So we think that that's kind of encouraging more kids to take the snack. And Dolores makes it a point to be there early at Dana Gray for those kids who aren't staying, who have to jump on the bus, so to make sure they get something. So we think that's increased the participation there. And again, we have the trash issue. Now, the interesting thing is, which I actually expected, although we're not serving a whole lot more students, we have a significant increase in the revenue, and that was the motivation to go from snack to the super snack, because you get a reimbursement at a much higher rate from the government. So we were doing, 391 day an average, comparing August of 2018 to August 2019. That's the increase to this year. If I take the whole year from last year's average, we've increased about $339 a day in our reimbursements for our snacks after school. So if that holds throughout the year, we're looking about an increase of $61,000 of revenue for the snack. So that's really good news, and we've got a lot of kids getting their snackos. High school supper. There's been no changes to that program at all. It still is what it was. We do a real fresh cooked meal at the teen lounge every day after school. We made no changes to it. August to August, we saw a pretty big drop in our numbers, but if you look at it from the annual average from last year to August, it was just a slight decrease. So I know that our assets people are doing a lot of effort right now to promote and get it out there and get the word out. I'm not worried about it at this point because August is often a slow start. And we found with the high school program, we bring a lot in when the sports start picking up more and the kids are staying later and they're coming and getting something to eat before they do their practices or their games. So
And I think we had a lot of away games for scrimmages in the first couple weeks of school, which took out teams.
Yeah.
So
exactly. It's kind of hard to predict when we're dealing with only a couple, 3 weeks worth of data. So, but I'm not worried. It's been a really solid program for a lot of years and really popular for the teens. And we have other kids who drop into it. It's not just high school kids. We have other kids who will just come in and get a meal, and it's a really lovely thing. And it couples with the education program, where they actually my staff teaches kids how to cook the meals. So it's bringing together the after school enrichment and the actual service to the students. Other big program we added this year is we're selling meals to Three Rivers Charter School to meet the requirement to provide meals to their students. We're off to, I think, a very smooth start. It's gone really easy so far. My feedback from Three Rivers has been so far fine. They said they're liking it, looks good, no complaints. We're averaging only about 25 meals a day. So they're not getting the participation they anticipated. They anticipated about twice that much. So we did 275 meals for August. That was only 10 days. They started a little bit later than we did. And our invoice out to them was $2,049. So you break that down, it came down to $745 a meal and $4, about $205 a day. That's what we're doing for Three Rivers. I was asked to give you another update on breakfast in the classroom. My goodness. Can't see anymore, it's terrible. So in 17-18, Redwood did 23,172 breakfasts, Dana Gray did 15,876. I just kind of wanted to give you, what this is for is to give you an idea of how much revenue going breakfast in the classroom increased. Okay, so that was before breakfast in the classroom, that's pre-breakfast in the classroom. So you can see the amount of numbers we served there, and the amount of revenue we made was about, for the entire district on breakfast was 188,000. I didn't have the data to extract just those two schools, but I just wanted to give you a picture here of what this has done. Last school year, 18-19, by the time we were done, we served 61,756 breakfasts at Redwood and over 50,000 at Dana Gray. So significant increase in the amount of breakfast being served at those two elementary schools. So for the breakfast in the classroom only, just those two sites, our reimbursements for 18-19 was 214,000, up 26K. If you look at our entire district reimbursements for 18-19, it was 321,842. So we experienced a $133,654 increase to our revenues on breakfast between 17-18 and 18-19. So I think that breakfast in classroom did definitely generate some more revenue for the district. Really excited about that. Our launch this year was so much easier. It was really nice. The first year was rough. I gotta tell you, it was rough getting that off the ground the first year. But this year went surprisingly smoothly. It was really nice because we had a lot of new teachers, so I was a little concerned. I'm like, oh boy. But the returning teachers knew what to do. They're great supporters to the new teachers. And at Dana Gray particularly, the kids. I actually helped train the teachers. Even at Redwood, I walked into a second grade classroom, brand new teacher, just to see how it was going, check in on her. Perfectly run program, kids sitting there quietly eating their breakfast. I'm like, wow, Liza, this is amazing. And she says, the kids told me what to do. They had already been trained. So with anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So that was really exciting. Our participation is holding similar to last year's totals averages. And one exciting thing I'm really jazzed about, we're going to start tomorrow. Our Fort Bragg High School Advanced Digital Media class is going to be working with me this year to make a training video for future use for new teachers, for new students, for substitutes, whoever to be able to watch that video at the beginning of the year. So we'll have like just a short, 3 to 5 minute video on what you need to know to get through breakfast in the classroom to make that a more efficient start to the years in the future, and it'll be handy for someone comes in the middle of the year, and make sure all those points are get through clearly. So I'm really excited to be working with the teenagers on that one. So lots of changes, and with everything, there's good and there's the bad and there's the ugly, but the basic impact to the departments that we're super excited about, the positive things, more kids are eating. That's the most important thing right there, folks. We have more children eating, and we know how important that is, because if they're not fed, they don't learn. We've got increased revenue, hooray. Free and reduced processing is eliminated now. We've got community eligibility provisions, so that eliminated a lot of printing of paper and processing of paper, and it streamlined our processes. That's a huge plus. I no longer have to act as a collection agency, hooray. And I'm hearing a lot of gratitude from family and staff around these programs, most particularly the community eligibility provision. People are saying it's a huge relief for them to not have to worry about paying the lunch bill. If they forgot to pack a lunch, not a big deal. They know they can get their kid get it for free at school. So I'm hearing a lot of love coming back to the district for that. So I'm glad for that. Our challenges, because there's always challenges when you make change. My staff is working harder than ever. I mean, it's this, they make it look easy because they're amazing, and they are truly amazing. I could not be more proud of the women that work in this kitchen and the man who works in the warehouse. I mean, they've done an incredible job, but they are running triple time to make this look easy. So they're doing it, but we've got to be mindful of that because we're taking on a lot more workload with no more help. Super Stack is taking more staff time than we anticipated. Again, I've got one person who was doing supper with a helper who is now trying to do 3 school sites by herself. So it's taking a little bit longer than we thought. But we're still adjusting and experimenting. We got a workability student working with her now, and she came to me today super excited because, oh my gosh, we got all the vegetables done in an hour. So that's helping her out. And so it's really too soon to say at this point, but this is something I'm just going to keep an eye on. We've had a huge impact on this warehouse because we have so much more food coming through the district. More cases, more food. So we're trying to navigate that as carefully as we can. We're also feeling the impact on facility, just, where do we put all this stuff? It's a lot more coming through. And it's also a shift on how we're doing stuff. When we're doing breakfast in the classroom and super snack, when you're dealing with, packaged food, they come in big boxes. Our ingredients tend to come more, as very condensed, or you buy a sack of flour, it lasts you all month. Well, that can make you as all these muffins, but when you're buying muffins in these giant boxes, it's more space, it's more boxes, it's more, things going through. So that's been a real, probably one of our biggest challenges is the impact to the storage space in the warehouse. So we purchased, we had to purchase new refrigerator for the Dan Gray Super Snack. We thought we could use the old Kudo snack refrigerator for it, but it wasn't big enough. It just wouldn't handle the capacity. And then we had to get one for the middle school because there was never one there to begin with. That was a typo on my part, sorry. We got some equipment grants coming out from CDE and USDA, so I'll be applying for additional refrigeration. Middle school already told me we need another milk cooler. We don't know where we're going to put all the milk between Three Rivers and the snacks. We're running out of space. And Redwood is asking for a bigger indoor freezer, so I'm going to try to get grant monies to pay for that. And then we're going to investigate the possibility of some sort of storage shed for the high school to help them with their overflow. And that is the gist of it. And you have all the details in the backup if you care to peruse that. I won't go over all of it, but that's how I got to what I just told y'all. In a kind of, because I know some of you like to look at the little details. So any questions?
Well, first, thanks to you and your staff. I know it's a ton of work. I've heard from the student perspective really good things.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Three Rivers, is it a break even? Or like when we sell them?
Yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, we had to. We can't absorb any cost for them, unfortunately. We just can't do that. So we had to break down all the, what it really costs us and eke out the cost of the meal. We had to build in minimum order requirements. So they don't give us a minimum order, to meet, because it's not just the food and the labor, and we have to pre-order things, but it's also administration time. I've put an incredible amount of time into preparing all their paperwork and helping them through the process of getting approved by CDE to run their programs. So we had to build all that cost in. So yes, it is definitely break even.
Okay, great.
And so you have somebody delivering every day too?
No, Mary, they pick up.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. They've been very, very nice to work with. Been
Okay.
very easy, very pleasant to work with, yes.
Great, thank you for the staff, and I'd love to pop in and give them a cheer
some
because
love.
that's just so, I'm so happy that I know my kids are eating more on school site 'cause it's convenient, and just hope that it ends up, I'd love to have maybe in February or 6 months from now, which I think is 6 months from now, just a review of how that's going, like with the warehouse, and is it still bulging, and is anything changing? Because I imagine that by then, we could even have more kids eating.
Yeah.
'Cause it's still new.
We're rearranging things. We're moving the furniture around and shifting some hours around and playing with, what's going to work and doing some time surveys and so forth to try to figure out where we can make it more efficient and survivable for everyone. And it'll be interesting to see how the trends go with the free meals. Actually, we had a bigger increase at the high school than I anticipated, which was super exciting because we're competing against open campus. But
A lot
yeah.
of kids can't drive, so.
Yeah, and they love
And they
food.
love to eat.
So yeah, that was really good to see.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we're moving on to 8.3, County Investment Report with Wendy.
In the packet, you have the June report from the county. Basically, they go through, the report shows that they are adhering to their policies. You can see that at the moment it seems to be pretty heavy in cash. It has all the maturities of all of the investments they have. And there's not much to say other than what's in there. So there's, I think the policy was included, and the year-end report and the actual numbers.
Any questions?
And if anybody wants to go see those, they're online on the county's website. So anybody can go look at them anytime they want.
Anything that you're concerned about?
No. No, it's unbelievably conservative, so I'm not worried. And like I said, right now, they're pretty heavy in cash, which is fine. Probably with schools gearing up, they probably schedule it that way so that they have plenty of cash for startup costs and things, so.
Okay. So now we're moving on to 8.4, the school bond refinancing update. So do you-
Greg Isom will let you know how that went.
Greg Ice, I'm excited to be here again. Did you guys see the newspaper? No?
Just the headlines, but haven't read it yet.
I've been on the run today, sorry.
Well, right on the front page, it says Fort Bragg Unified saves taxpayers over $1.78 million. That's my report. So, I don't think we could have timed the market any better. I mean, I don't know if it's just the wisdom of Wendy or just pure luck. But we literally, like, I think it was 20 days ago, the bond market was at the lowest that it's ever been, like, in the history of bonds, like, ever. And I think we locked in rates the week after. And since then, rates have gone up like almost 25 to 30 basis points, like in the last week and a half, which is crazy. So had we waited a little bit longer, the savings would have maybe said, 1.1 million or $1 million. So pretty fantastic news. Just some quick highlights. Sometimes in the bond world, there's like a percentage that's used where you say, hey, if it's, you want to achieve at least 4% net present value savings. That's when it financially makes sense for a district to pursue a bond refi. And your final savings were 15.9%, it's almost 4 times more than the average refunding. The all-in true interest cost, so when people say, well, what was our actual interest rate? Your actual interest rate was a 3.28.
Wow.
And that's for 20 years, 21 years. As a 3 point, yeah, might as well just give us the money for free. So that's the highlight. You guys did, I'll talk about the rating really quickly. So we got your rating report. You're still a single credit A. The rating analysts informed us that if you guys continue to do what you've been doing, I think next year they said that you guys could be, there could be an opportunity for an upgrade to the rating, which would mean just lower overall interest cost to taxpayers for future, debt. And I'm open for any questions about the refunding. Great.
And Greg, I just would like to say publicly, thank you for your guidance on it, because for me, it was incredibly easy. I don't know how it was for you, Wendy. I just got to watch the emails come through with all the good news. I'm like, this is the best refinancing ever. So thank you for walking us through it and helping us with that. It was smooth for me.
It was smooth. Wendy said it was smooth for her as well.
It's fine.
Oh.
No, it was fine.
It's a refi. It's
I only had to sign
cumbersome.
one paper, though, not like my house where,
Oh,
Yeah.
there were plenty of them.
Oh, you okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of random documents where it's just like, okay, I'll sign. And there's a lot of random conference calls where you're just kind of sitting there just listening and not saying much, just hearing just people talk. So your administration did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Wendy.
All right, and we actually signed the last papers today, and they FedExed back, and I think the 18th is when everything is actually
Officially
closed, done, gone.
Yay.
I can close that folder.
Thank you.
So the next thing is the analysis of the bond survey results.
Thank you.
Anyone get called?
I did.
I did.
Data skewed.
No, I actually
know, I
did
wanted
not
to-
answer the survey because I told him who I was.
Me too.
And the gentleman said, let me ask my supervisor if I can talk to you. And he came back, he said, I can't talk to you. And I said, okay, well, have a good night.
I did the same thing. And he said,
I had my
"Okay, thanks."
parent hat on that evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I answered.
Felt like I am public.
And I'm a parent and
Well, you
I
couldn't
own
have planned
property.
that better, Mr. Isom.
I'm sorry?
You couldn't have planned that better.
Right.
I'm pretty good. Okay, so last time I was here, direction was given to do a voter opinion survey of the community in Fort Bragg Unified School District. So if you recall, it wasn't like we just called every single person. We had to give them specific, a group of voters saying you can only call this many Democrats, this many Republicans, this many this. And here's your list of all the voters that kind of fit this profile on who we think is going to be voting at a March election date. And so it's interesting because they kind of categorize, it's not in here, but it has like very high propensity, most likely going to vote, and maybe not, but could vote in March. So we have this breakdown. But if you recall, so on page 2, the methodology behind the survey, I went for a little bit less than a week. Voter attitudes about projects, tax rates, and just the overall concept of a bond. 229 households were contacted, 324 individuals. Represents approximately 10% of district voters with a working phone number. Okay? You have a lot of phone numbers that don't work. So, right into it on page 3, we kind of give them a warm-up question, and we said, well, generally speaking, would you say that education in California is headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? And you can see 31 said right, 31 said I have no idea, 38% said wrong direction. This is pretty standard statewide, people just think that California is just kind of going down, especially with education. This number gets worse and worse and worse every single year. Okay? And then on the right-hand side, we say, well, from what you know or from what you've heard, how'd you rate the quality of education provided by Fort Bragg Unified? You can see the numbers there, 12% excellent, 47 good, 20 fair, 13 had no idea, and 8% said poor or very poor. So when I take a look at this question, I don't really care that much about if they think you're doing an awesome job. What I want to know is, do people think you're doing a bad job? And that only 8% people think you're doing a bad job, you're perfectly fine. If you were like 10 to 15% negative, more like 15% and say, okay, there's a perception problem going on right now in Fort Bragg. But the fact that you're less than 10%, you can check that box. I think it's important to note, at the end of the survey, we asked the people to say, well, do you have any children or grandchildren, or have you ever had any children or grandchildren attend school in the Fort Bragg Unified School District? And you can see that over half the people who took the survey have absolutely no connection to your schools.
I'm really surprised.
Which I mean, probably this represents who your voters are, but it's also to know when you look at the results of the survey that these are the people, of the half of the people who don't know anything, how do they respond to it?
So can I just go back real quick to the methodology? So you
Yeah.
said 229 households were contacted.
Mm-hmm.
Did all of them, is that how many people completed?
Completed the survey. You had a bunch of people who start, hang up, people say not interested, hang
Okay.
up.
So 229 is how many
Solid.
completions?
Complete, 229 households, correct. Okay. On page 4, a lot of people think that this is the popularity contest, which it's not. Page 4 is to tell me, are there any perception problems in the district when it comes to certain aspects of it? So we said, would you please rank them, excellent, good, fair, don't know, poor, very poor, between teachers, principals, superintendent, school board, district's job at managing its finances. And so what we did here is we prioritized which were the most popular, but once again, what I'm focusing on is the green and the orange, right? And this is what is considered to be a normal school district. This is how it's supposed to look. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be teachers, principals, superintendent, school board, finances. If it wasn't in that order, I'd say that there's a perception problem for one of these aspects of it. And then what I look at as well is that green and orange, is anything over the 20% negative? That tells me another thing, which, okay, something's bad, and you're not. So the fact that managing its finances is right around 15, 16%, that's pretty normal for normal school districts in California. Okay, so this is a good page. I don't know, if you're hoping, Becky, that you wanted it to be, less, but the vast majority of people have no idea. I think, remember, half the people who took this have no connection. So like, superintendent, huh? What's a superintendent, right? So good news. I like that page 4. Page 5. Good schools help improve property values. 92% agree with that statement. 4% disagree. 4% don't know. This is pretty good. If you were below 90%, I'd say, oh, you're kind of unusual. Most people in California, you're 90% or above. Okay, so 90% is good. Because the state continues to underfund public education, local voters need to do more to protect the quality of facilities in the local public schools. 79% agree, 13% disagree, 8% didn't know. 80% is kind of like the average number of response on this one, and so you're pretty much right there at the average in California when it comes to responses on this specific question. Okay, bond question. This is where we kind of just like, we're kind of giving them some like fluffy questions, and tell us what you really think about this. Tell us about your feelings. And then we say, whack, we're thinking about doing a bond, 34 million. Would you vote yes or would you vote no? And so we read them that yellow box. And the reason we read them that yellow box is because for the average community member, that's what they're going to be reading or paying attention to when they actually vote at the ballot. Okay, and so some of it is going to be kind of confusing, but this is legally like what's required, and so we want them to give us our honest response, even if they're totally confused. Okay. And so you can see 59.4% said yes, 1.7 lean yes, 5.7 undecided, 0.9 lean no, 4.8 didn't know, 27.5 said no. Okay? Does this expect what you guys expected? Higher or lower? I'm
This
curious.
was higher than what I expected.
Really?
So I said, yeah.
You too? I thought
What about you?
it was going to be higher, to be honest. But that was my initial thoughts. But then when you think of half the people have no connection to your schools, okay.
No,
Well, I have to tell you, Greg, when I saw this for the first time, that really shocked me, that over half, 52%, had no children in our schools,
That surprises me.
Shocked
no
me too.
grandchildren, no current children, that they weren't connected to us at all. It was shocking because it changed the lens that I looked at this with. Completely changed my lens.
Yep.
Um,
So this is pretty wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, this
Ben.
is most likely a conservative sampling of your community, right? Okay. Next 2 pages is where we asked about facilities. And so these, on 7 and 8, these were randomized. And so, it's not like it didn't go in the specific order. If you got roofs, for your call, you got plumbing for your call, so it's just complete random. But what we did is we ranked them on the most popular to least popular. You can see roof repair number 1, electrical 2, health and safety 3, modernize, renovate outdated classrooms 4, just a very general statement. 5, which was shocking to me, was temporary portables. And the reason for that is because in a lot of communities, portables doesn't test that well. But for your district, it does, which says that they're probably very aware of portable problems. So that was an interesting stat to me. Not only just was it top 5.
I skewed that question.
I'm sorry?
I skewed that question.
Not only was it top 5, but it was also like really strongly supported, over 70%. Tech, strong. HVAC, very strong. Playgrounds, okay, we're kind of still at 65. New classrooms and facilities, not as important as modernized existing facilities. And then PE fields and facilities. So when it says SSB and SSA, half the people got playgrounds, the other half got PE fields. Kind of right, the same question, but just asked a different way. And you can see that playgrounds and play fields, was far superior over PE fields and facilities. Also, something we're paying attention to is that orange and green. Is there something that your community just really, really does not want? And I think the answer is no. There's nothing that they just said that they're completely opposed to. But I think you just probably, don't refer to them as PE fields. You refer to them as play fields. It's the same thing. But overall, very strong support for projects. Keep going. So what we do now on page 9 is we remind voters that bonds actually do cost money. Bonds are not free. A lot of people think that, but they're not. And so we actually wanted to figure out where is the tax threshold. So we actually started high, and we went in the exact order of 70, 60, 50, 45, okay? Even though you can't ask for 60, I don't know if I explained this or not. Sometimes we throw in a higher number because just to get a true reaction. I don't want people to just immediately hear 60 and then just reject it if that's not the true number. So you can see just by throwing out 70, you almost had half your community said yes to $70, even though you legally couldn't even ask them to support $70. You can see 49 and 42 Lean yes, lean no. These are voters who said they're undecided, and they said, well, are you leaning yes or are you leaning no? Well, I'm leaning towards it, so 51%. When you drop it by $10, you then jump up to 56%. And so you gain, you gain 5 percentage points, and on the no vote, you lost 3. When you get to the $50 number, jumps up big to 63% yes, 1% lean yes. Whoever this lean yes person is, or 2 people, they just said I'm lean yes.
Sticking with it.
I'm not changing my mind. But you can see it went down to 32% for the no, and then when we got to $45, went up to almost 2/3, and then 30% said no. So, surprisingly, this was the one I didn't think you'd have as much support even at the $60 limit as what it shows right here. This was one that surprised me the most. So the most important question of the entire survey is on page 11, which is where we ask the bond question again. And we say, well, now that you've heard more information about projects and that these cost money, we don't tell them how much it is. They assume it's probably the higher one. That's what most voters do. Would you vote yes or would you vote no? And you can see that the results actually went up from 59 to 62. You gained 3 percentage points. You even gained some extra lean yeses. The no vote went up by 3 percentage points. You still have some people that don't know the answer. But overall, what this tells us is that your community is more project supporters rather than tax rate, sensitivity, or just more sensitive to the tax rate, right? Because normally when we see that the result go down after the tax rate, that tells us that your community values their money, like these middle voters value money rather than the projects. When your community is kind of like, oh, well, if I spend this much, we're gonna be able to fix these projects. Okay, I sign up for that. Because we see it all the way up and down the state to where results have dropped 8 percentage points, which says, whoa, slow down, your tax rate is unmanageable, or wow, you could do any bond amount that you want, your community really likes you guys, and they see a need. So this tells us that while there is some tax rate sensitivity, the more information that you provide to your community, the more that you educate them, your results go up. Okay, so that's great news, as opposed to, as I said, if it went backwards, that's tough. So conclusions and recommendations. Your voters, they like you. If you notice, they think that you guys are doing a good job. 2, initial support was right around 62%, including the lean yes, but after more info was given, you actually jumped up to 66% with the lean yes. All the projects were well received. Some tax rate sensitivity, but as I said, it's the preference is projects over tax rate, at least, not for every single person, right? But for the average Joe community member. So our recommendation is to continue down the path, because as I said at the last board meeting, this represents the perception with the average Joe community member, and this is the first step to determining whether you guys do a bond next year or not. And so the next step is reaching out to some key stakeholders and getting their buy-in, and then if they are supportive of your efforts and your thoughts in the bond, and you marry the 2 of them together, and that's what's going to bring you a successful bond program. If your key stakeholders are just thumbing it down saying, get out of here, well, then maybe we need to rethink everything. But if everything looks really strong, our recommendation would be to continue and look towards the March 2020 primary, which would mean then that, working backwards, that a resolution would be in front of you guys in November to approve. And I'm open for any questions or criticisms.
So next steps.
Next steps would be, I'm going to reach out to your administrators and say, here are, from my vantage point, some of the key stakeholders, like just for me looking from the outside looking in on who I think you need to reach out to. And then they're going to say, okay, great, we also need to add these 5 to 8 people, because these are key people as well. And then we're going to be, reaching out to them, and not me, because I don't know them, but you're going to be reaching out to some of these key people and saying, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, and why? Is this something you think you could support us if we did this? And then we kind of take a look at that list of who's a yes, who's a no, who's an undecided, who can we get a hold of? And then we make the determination. If we say, hey, things are looking good, things are looking positive, then it comes forward in November, because you've already done your needs assessment, which normally takes the longest thing to do. So that's done, check the box. check this box. Now it's just, as I said, reaching out to some key people and getting their buy-in. And then if that looks good in the next 45 days is when we'd start working on a bond resolution for approval in November. Those are the immediate next steps. If something comes back negative that we're totally unaware of, if there's a random tweet that gets sent out by a president which just causes complete freak out, we pull the plug, we say there's no way we're going to March, maybe November.
And I assume you would provide statements and talking points
You're on your own.
to
Yes,
provide to those
Correct.
key stakeholders.
correct.
So the yeah.
Curiosity question? Is that okay?
Do we need her to,
Oh,
Go
we're
to the
gonna need
mic.
you to mic.
Does that one work?
can you swing that one around?
So I'm just curious if there's a reason that a lot of people didn't seem to know the survey was coming out. Was that part of the is that part of the program
Yes.
to do that intentionally? So because I was just watching it blow up on Facebook, I'm getting these calls, I don't know what it is, and people seemed suspicious.
Of course, yeah, anyone's gonna seem suspicious when they get some random phone number from out of town asking, wait, the district? I didn't get anything from the district. Is this real or is this fake? No, we intentionally 100% even recommend to school districts to not alert the community that something's coming. Because one, that allows for people, we don't want it to be skewed in any way. So skewed being, if people are prepared, they're thinking about it, they're already talking about it ahead of time, and that's gonna change people's opinions. So what we're looking for is just a complete gut shot opinion without having any information and getting some random phone call. How would you vote on this? Because knowing, if we wanted to campaign ahead of time and prep people and say, wow, this is going to do all these great things, these numbers would have been 5 percentage points higher. And I don't think that's a true, accurate representation of what a survey should be. And what we have found as well is that the vast majority of people who vote on these things, they're not going to be on Facebook, right? People on Facebook, that's a certain person, right? Same like next door. But the 50% of people who have no connection to the schools ever, these people probably aren't on Facebook. These people are probably not going to take a phone call from a random person. These people are not going to get anything sent home to them by some kid or grandkid, and they're not going to open the door when you knock on their door and say, would you vote for this? And that is so key to know how these types of voters are going to vote on something. So if you try to prep them with as much information as you can, skewing it. That's why we do it. Yep.
So the demographics that you choose, you choose by party, but do you also choose age? Do we know how old all of these
The
folks
age-
are?
I'll give
'Cause
you
at
a
50%,
real
I'm
good
thinking
guess.
statistics.
The statistics probably on who took the survey, you know the age of person that took the survey. Number one, who takes phone surveys. Number two, who has absolutely zero connection to the schools. Who doesn't know if they have a connection to the school, right?
But it's still very valuable. I feel
No,
like
it's
this
super
is. I feel like
valuable.
this is actually the population you want to check in with.
If we
That's
wanted to skew the
absolutely
data,
awkward,
we would Instagram surveys. And it's going to be like 99% yes of people, 18 to 24. Probably like 90% of that voter, of 18 to 30, is going to vote yes on this. And so it's like, okay, since we know that, do we really need to survey that type of voter? Same thing with someone who has never voted before in their life. Like, if you're 65 years old, you lived in Fort Bragg for 30 years, and you've never voted, do you think you're going to come vote this March? Absolutely not. So do we really, we care about people's opinions, but when it comes to this, not really, because they're not even going to vote on something like this. So their opinion doesn't matter that much. So this is, as I said, it's a pretty conservative demographic who took this survey. The demographic between Democrat, Republican, and independent voters is almost spot on, but the age is skewed older.
And is this a valid amount? 229 is a good number? Do you normally get more?
It depends on the community. You only have 8,800 registered voters in the district. Our goal, if we would have done a shorter survey, we would have gotten a lot more. And so it's just getting more and more challenging. Our original goal is to get like in between 300 and 400.
Okay.
That's our original goal. But then we never know until you actually get the county files, right? Because it's like you could have this many voters and this is a goal. But if you only have, 3,000, homes, and of those 3,000 homes, half of them, have a phone number, and of those, how many of them actually work?
Right.
And so I always say the survey isn't 100%. This does not guarantee you success.
Right.
It doesn't. This tells me if the survey were yesterday, I mean, if there was an election yesterday, would you have won? 100%, right? But there's a lot of time between now and election day. This is to tell you whether or not you're in the game. This tells you, should we go to the next level? This tells you, hey, are there any problems that we are completely unaware of? And this survey, in my opinion, tells us there are no big problems in your district that people think is going on. They like your projects. They like you guys. They're not big fans of paying tax. I mean, it's not like people love paying taxes, but I think they're okay with it. They're okay with it as long as they get something cool out of it. And this is what this told us. But as I said, there's still one more step, which is the key stakeholders. Good.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
So folks, update your landlines that you've abandoned with your cell phone numbers with the county.
I was contacted by a community member. They said, Becky, you authorized them to call me because someone had asked who authorized you to make the phone call. And I had to explain to the person, no, this came from voter registration materials. This did not come from Fort Bragg Unified. We're not passing out phone numbers. So just so folks know. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you for coming up.
Okay, so do we need to discuss whether we want to move forward? This isn't an action item or anything,
No,
but,
it's a report.
so do we need to give our feedback on when, or we're already in and we're going?
Well, I think for us, if we have to have a resolution by November, what's going to happen, at least my understanding of it and having it in reports, was giving you the report and then us telling you that we were going to get the meeting with the key stakeholders, letting the board know when that meeting was so the two of you could attend. And then in October, we would be telling you at the next board meeting how that meeting with key stakeholders went, so that it would be up for discussion, so that then if it moved to action, it would move to action in November. So the next step is going to happen. We are going to meet with the key stakeholders and get that together prior to our next school board meeting, which is October 17th. And then at that point, we'll have a report for you in October to tell you, is this how the response was? That'll be in discussion. And then in November, if there's a resolution to be passed, that'll go to action.
Great.
Does that sound about right? Okay.
Okay, any questions? Any questions on that?
No, it might be interesting in your meeting or in your conversations, and I'm sure Greg will talk about this, the money we saved with the refi and this, maybe there's a way to spin it positively so that people are more likely to take their savings and put it towards, our buildings,
I
facilities.
imagine that would be part of any campaign,
Yeah,
but I don't.
that's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great it's in the paper, too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, any questions from the public? Okay. All right, so we are on to the consent calendar. So there are 5 items. Is there anything that anyone feels needs to be pulled or discussed, and discussed?
I think I'm okay. I just wanted to thank all the staff that are raising their hand and helping all of our new staff. That's a huge list of folks that are putting in lots and lots of good time and bonding with the new staff. So I appreciate everyone's efforts.
Okay. So if there's no questions or anything that needs to be pulled, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, Diana, will you read?
Yes, 9.1 is warrants. 9.2 is minutes for the special meeting July 24th and the regular board meeting of August 9th. 9.3 is personnel action report. 9.4 is the CIF school representatives. And 9.5 is contract with Mountain Valley School.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we're moving on to board action items. Our first one is 10.1, unaudited actuals.
Okay, just get my PowerPoint up here. It's here somewhere. So you have the 156-page packet. Many of the pages in that packet are admittedly not very interesting, but there are some interesting things in there. And the things I put in the front are, I think, the most helpful to people. So that's what I'm going to focus on in the slideshow, and then we can talk about any other questions you have. So this was not really readable from up there, is it? Anyway, this is comparing our original budget to the unaudited actuals, and I let me see if I can. No, can't blow it up any. And this is not helpful. So. Trying to think of how I can do this.
Control plus. Control and the plus key at the same time. Control and the plus. And plus again.
Oh, that's a little better, okay.
Plus again.
Then
Every
it's
time
off
you
the
hit it, it
screen.
gets bigger.
Okay, so let me move that way. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, so I still need glasses. All right, so because it's always nice to look at where you actually started, because the budget changes all year long. And so by the time you get to June, it really should be very close to where you end up. So I like to go back and look at where we started and see how well we did at guesstimating. So you can see there was a slight increase. This is the unrestricted general fund revenues. The target was fully funded after we adopted the budget, so there was a slight increase in that, and the COLA for the LCFF part. The mandated reimbursement that we actually received was less than what we knew in June, so that made up for a lot of that difference. And then the, let's see, there was much higher interest received, and the contribution from the city for the new tractor are responsible for a lot of the other increase in the income. And for the expenses, we didn't settle negotiations for 18-19 until, I think, October. So that was not built into the budget back in June. And then the benefits increase with the settlement as well. And then in capital outlay, we had that brand new tractor. Which I know it seems like a big number for a tractor, but it's really a pretty awesome machine. It does some wonderful stuff. And then for contributions, special ed was slightly higher. We eliminated the contribution to kudos. Yay. And then slightly lower contribution to routine restricted maintenance that was required. And then, there we go. For the restricted side, we had a couple of unexpected new resources that came in. There was the low performing students block grant. There was, I can't remember all of them, but there were. And then we transferred our deferred revenue into actual revenue. So there's a couple $100,000 each year that goes into an actually a liability account. It's money that we collected but didn't spend yet on restricted things. So that comes out of the prior year revenue and goes away, and it gets added to the new revenue. But we don't do that until the books are closed. And so we do the budget, the books aren't closed yet. So that accounts for a fair bit of that number also. The increase in other local was from the kudos fees, an increase in the reimbursement from Three Rivers, and then we had a nice little windfall in the TOOP money, the tobacco use prevention money that came into alt-ed. The savings, the changes in expenditures were largely due to, well, the certificated salaries was just positions not being filled for the most part. And then a big increase in our STRS on behalf and a new adjustment to a PERS on behalf, which I'll explain a little later. And then a capital outlay, there was another project in the ag department that happened in 18-19 that we had not budgeted for initially. And then these are just the combined totals. So all in all, our ending fund balance ended up about $300,000 less than we had budgeted from the original budget. And a lot of that is because of the contribution to the board reserve, that we took that one-time mandate reimbursement money and put it to there. Without that change, we would have been almost exactly the same as the original budget. So
Wow.
we did a pretty decent job. So this you can see our revenues from original budget to unaudited actuals increased by 7%, and the expenditures also increased by 7%. So it comes in and it goes out. And a lot of that is because some of the money we get in is earmarked for a specific purpose, and so it gets spent. Almost half of this 7% is because of the increase. I think I've explained the STRS on behalf. The state has said, the state has this much liability hanging out there in STRS. We think the school districts need to show their portion of that, even though we are never going to be responsible for it. So we show an increase in a phantom revenue from the state, and we show an increase in a phantom expense for benefits. It's completely bizarre. It ruins your bottom line, but it's more annoying than anything. This year, there was an additional one-time increase to the amount we had to put into STRS, about $500,000. And then they also made us do the same thing with PERS, which they hadn't done before. So now we're showing our share of the state's PERS liability on top of it. So that is a big reason for, it's like I said, it's about half of this 7% increase was those two things. Then this is comparing to what you had at budget. So when we do estimated actuals, when we adopt the budget, those numbers are still budget numbers. Mm-hmm. They're not real things. The unaudited actuals is reality. Mm-hmm. So again, there are things that get adjusted, that get moved, that we don't exactly know where they're going to pan out because bills are still coming in and all of that. So, but from where we started, where we were in June, the revenues were up 131,000, and 98 of that was from the city for the tractor. The direct cost transfer is something that is it's kind of a total. It's really kind of a guess at the beginning of the year. We think that this much money is going to be transferred from transportation to different programs. And, we guess all we can. It's really kind of a moving it from this side of the page to that side of the page. So it's not an impact on the bottom line. It's just where it shows up. Mm-hmm. So there was a little more of that, quite a bit more of that from the unrestricted side to the restricted side than we had originally thought. We had a reduced contribution to nutrition services, hooray. Mm-hmm. Some of that was due to the increase in the revenues and belt tightening. About 25,000 of that was due to the state coming in and saying, no, you're not allowed to deduct that because the Culinary Arts Center also uses the propane. So we had to pull all of that expense out. Mm-hmm. The freezer that's at the warehouse, because it doesn't have a separate meter, we can't take any of that expense in food services, so that has to come back to the general fund side. Mm-hmm. So again, it doesn't help our bottom line any or hurt the bottom line any, it just moves it from over here to over there. But that was something that contributed to the reduction in the transfer. Contributions were pretty close to what we thought in June. And then you can see the ending fund balance increase of 370. And then the restricted side from June to now, again, this is that STRS on behalf and the new PERS on behalf was responsible for all of that, if not all of it, actually more than that number. For federal, again, the revenue goes down because we receive the revenue and show it as revenue until we close the books. And if we haven't spent it, then we move it out of revenue. So that 192,000 is largely due to those amounts being moved into deferred revenue. And so then they'll show up again in 1920 as revenue again once we spend it. Employee benefits, there was some budget that hadn't been increased for the estimated actuals, but also, again, that stirs and PERS on behalf number was responsible for most of that. And then, services and others, this is, again, a place where once we close the books, the budget still showed that we, had planned to spend this, and until all the bills come in, we don't know. So we don't adjust that to where we are in June because we know that there are going to be bills coming in. So there were actually 177,000 that had been budgeted to be spent that didn't get spent, and so that kind of goes hand in hand with these revenues, these deferred revenues that didn't get spent during the year. And then this is just the combination of the two. So we ended up in a better place than where we thought in June. So that was nice. Then this is our ADA trend. This is 20 years of 90 from 1991 through now. You can see very clearly when GP closed. And then the gradual decline there, and then we've been, up and down, up and down, up and down, and we're pretty steady for now. This is 20 years worth of salaries and benefits as a % of total revenues, and you can see, I don't know if you can read the numbers on the bottom, but we're hanging 80 from the last few years, 84%, 83, 79, 80, 82, and 82.5 this year. So that's been staying fairly constant. And what I did in the next slide is I took out one-time money because we don't use one-time money to pay for salaries and benefits generally. So taking that out gives a clearer picture of your salaries and benefits, which are ongoing costs, compared to your ongoing revenues. And you can see it adds about 3% to what the cost of salaries and benefits to ongoing revenues are. This shows a history of the general fund revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. The revenues are the bright pink line here. The expenditures are the sort of lavendery line, and you can see they're, mirroring each other completely. And then this is our general fund balance, and you can see again, 7, 8, 8, 9 were years when we had a lot of categorical money that we kind of squirreled away, and then gradually spent down, and then we've been able to increase our fund balance a little bit, so it's been fairly constant the last 5 or 6 years. And then this shows in our fund balance, how much of it, this is the total fund balance. The assigned and designated number is this sort of pale green line here. That's right, you can't see my cursor. The darker purple line is the restricted amount, and then the totally unassigned is the lighter lavender amount at the bottom. And you can see, 12, 13 at bottom to really almost nothing, and we've been doing a better job of maintaining some unassigned fund balance so that when unexpected things happen, we can manage them. And this is just projected out to 2021. Again, you can see, we peaked a little bit this past year, and we're looking at some deficit spending this year, and you can tell, the revenues are slightly below the expenditure line. I think we may end up seeing those closer together, so I would expect this to, as we go through the year, to end up being more flat, I hope, although we do have some unexpected expenses coming in right now to deal with and work in there. So, so that's what I have for that. So is there anything else in the packet in particular you'd like to go over, or?
I just thought it was fascinating, which it's always in there, but to see the ratio of our spending with what programs we have and how much money is in that. It's at the very, very end, which is fascinating to see, what each fund, I think it was kind of in funds and then also sites almost. You could see where they were in the sense of what's mandated, and how many expenses are involved in each category. So this goes to the county and they analyze it and review, and then we get our letter in.
Depends on how busy the county is.
Right.
Probably, let's see, this is September, certainly before first interim. So sometimes they're pretty quick and sometimes they take a little longer. It just depends on how much they have on their plates.
And they compare it with our budget and then.
They go in and look in the system, and I send them a whole workbook that I do, balancing every single resource. They look that over to make sure that it's reasonable, that it matches what's in the system. They look at, I send them a lot of my work papers. So,
So it's a back and forth.
No, basically I
Usually-
send it to them, and sometimes they'll have a few questions, and if they see something funny, they'll let me know, and we'll fix it at first interim. But we spend a lot of time reconciling, and comparing, and looking at things. So I haven't had much usually to fix. So.
Right.
How's our reserve balance doing?
It's doing well, thank you very
'Cause we
much.
just-
Our reserve for economic uncertainty, the 3%, we're maintaining that just fine. We'll be fine, I believe, with our increase in the contribution we have to make to the routine restricted in this year, because it's going up to the full 3% as well. And the board reserve has us looking, very much better than we had, because there's a little cushion there should something unexpected happen. There is a little bit of, and I'll be bringing this to you next month, some of the money that we had used for the district-wide wireless project came from the solar credits from when that system went in. The money was accumulated with the credits. We had enough, we knew and estimated how much was going to come in, and knew we could use that money to pay for that project. There's a little bit left from that was previously committed for that, and anything that's committed has to be board changed. So what I'm going to suggest is that we recommit that to the board reserve to help get us closer to where we want to be.
Great, thanks.
And that's in the packet, that's in Fund 17. That's where that's been transferred to.
I just like seeing the charts of the line going up.
Yeah.
with the reserve.
Yeah, what I'll have to do is start a new chart where I add the board reserve to that as well, because
Okay.
that's important. And I think, you saw the county, when they saw the budget, was pretty pleased that you had decided to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the community. Everyone's talking, is there going to be a recession or whatever, and just them knowing.
There will
that-
be, we
Yes,
just don't know when it's going to be.
how
yeah.
bad, but
So,
just be good for them to see that we'll be, should be okay, depending, of course.
So it'll be interesting to me, over the years, we've been, our technology is way increased, and so I don't know exactly what fund that was coming from, if it's just a general fund, but now that we're kind of reached, I don't know about capacity, but there'll be more maintenance to it, but will there theoretically be funds for something else to focus on from the sites or the board? to use? I don't know.
Well, as far as technology, we've taken our technology out of many sources, not really
Mhm.
from the general fund.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
there's been
all over,
some-
probably.
Yeah, I mean, we had some Microsoft settlement money that we've been using for that. We've been using E-rate funds a lot for that. And depending on how the technology is being used, for instance, supplemental concentration funds have purchased some of the
Some.
Chromebooks because they were designed for kids who don't have technology at home to be able to take a Chromebook home, or to allow them to access online interventions to help
Mhm.
support what they're trying to do in the classroom. So we've used some of that. I think we used the college readiness block grant for
Mhm.
some of them.
To get some
So it's
cards.
all over. Okay.
So when there was a specific need, it didn't have to necessarily come.
So it's not, not just one line that,
No,
now it's
it's-
No,
going to
it's
open
all
up
over
some
the-
funds.
It's all over
It's-
the place.
Okay,
yeah.
you just were creative in the sense of trying to utilize money that was, could be used for all the needs.
And one of the things that we've been talking about at our administrative council meetings is really looking ahead to the future and thinking about how will we replenish? Because just because we have it all now,
Maintenance.
laptops have a 5-year lifespan if you're lucky. And Ari's been really great about stretching some of those out to 8 and 9 and 10-year lifespans.
Mhm.
But we have to do a serious concerted effort of making sure that we are budgeting within our means for replacements, so that we're not looking at replacing 1,800 Chromebooks all in one fair swoop, or taking every employee laptop and replacing those in one fair swoop. So that's been a point of discussion with all of us.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Wendy? Okay, so this is an action item.
I move to approve the unaudited actuals for 18, 19, right?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Do you want me to do it?
I don't care.
Board Member Schneider,
Yes.
Board Member Paoli,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Trustee, President Babcock.
Yes.
And Trustee Makala.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now we have a public hearing for consider acceptance of instructional materials fund assurance and adoption of resolution 1912, certification of provision of standards aligned instruction. So should we read I don't think we'll read all the textbooks themselves, but Dana, would you read the?
You need to open the public hearing first.
Before I read it?
I
I was going to read it and then open,
Okay, go ahead.
but I could be wrong.
I thought you opened it and then read it.
Okay, All right.
I could be.
let's open the
Well, it's been a
public
while
hearing
since I did
at
this.
7:42. Diana, would you please read?
Did we close it or we open it now? 7:42? Okay. Whereas the resolution number 1912, sufficiency of instructional materials, whereas the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District, in order to comply with the requirements of Ed Code Section 60119, held a public hearing on September 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m., which is on or before the 8th week of the school, and which did not take place during or immediately following school hours. And whereas the governing board provided at least 10 days' notice of the public hearing, posted in at least 3 public places within the district that stated the time, place, and purpose of the hearing, and whereas the governing board encouraged participation by parents, teachers, members of the community, and bargaining unit leaders in the public hearing, and whereas information provided at the public hearing and to the governing board at the public meeting detailed the extent to which textbooks and instructional materials were provided to all students, including English learners in the district, and whereas the definition of the sufficient textbook or instructional materials means that each pupil has a textbook or instructional materials or both to use in class and to take home, And whereas sufficient textbooks and instructional materials were provided to each student, including English learners, that are aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the cycles and content of the curriculum frameworks in the following subjects. We're going to include math, science, history, social study, social science, English, language arts, whereas sufficient textbooks or instructional materials were provided to each pupil enrolled in foreign language and health class. Now, therefore, be it resolved that for the 2019-20 school year, the Fort Bragg Unified School District has provided each pupil with sufficient textbooks and instructional materials aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the cycles and content of the curriculum frameworks, passed and adopted by the Governing Board of Fort Bragg Unified on this 12th day of September 2019 by the following vote.
Any questions from the board or any discussion items? Any questions from the public? Okay.
We provided 10 days notice in 3 places and all that. Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Well, I think
You have to close
you have to
the
close the
public
hearing.
Okay, we're ready? I'll close the public hearing at 7:45.
And I move to approve the adoption of Resolution 1912.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makela, President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So 10.3 are administrative regulations that we and board policies that we reviewed last meeting. They come back this time for action for approval. Did anybody have any further questions or anything come up at ADCO or anything that we
No.
need to? Okay. All right. So if there is no further,
I move that we approve item 10.3, approving the board policy updates.
I'll second.
okay, any discussion?
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Makela.
Okay. 10.4, intern permits for certificated staff. We have 2 more to add to the list. Any questions about? This is really a formality that we have to acknowledge that these people are on intern permits.
And some of them are in their second year, is what I'm getting.
Right.
I think we just keep adding to the list, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any public questions? Okay,
I move we approve item 10.4, approval of the intern waivers.
And I second.
and any discussion?
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, so we've got some information and discussion items, so we've finished the action items. I'm going to pause if there's anybody in the audience that would like to dismiss themselves at this time without guilt. Okay. All right, so 11.1, the 2021 academic calendar. This is our second, right? Not third, but second meeting with this. Okay. So we have the survey results, right?
Yes.
Yes. So Becky, do you want to tell us about it, or?
So what you have in front of you, and I'm just checking my Google Forms, is we asked the public to get online and vote for a calendar. And then we sent it out to the employees and had them vote. With the employees, we only allowed 1 vote, so it was limited. And let me pull that up so I can tell you what that is, because I don't think Anna included the one from the public.
So these 80 are just from the public?
Yes.
Okay.
So we had 72 employees respond. 72. And from that 72, we had 58% wanting proposal 1, 30% wanting proposal 2, 11% wanting proposal 3. When I looked at these results, there's two differences here. Proposal 1 had a 3-day October break, and proposal 2 and 3 had a 2-day October break. And then 2 and 3 had that random day with the December or with the April. What I think is interesting is that if we were to do this vote this April, I think the vote would change. Because we have an extra day on the spring break this year, and people are much more incredibly tired in April than they are in October. Just saying. But, we'll see. What this comes down to when we vote, when you as a board vote on this in November, it's really, the main difference is the October break. Not necessarily do we get an extra day in January, do we get an extra day in the April extra day is going to happen, but is that extra day, before the break, after the break, or is that extra day with the October break? So those kinds of things. So it's however you discuss it and whatever you feel is the needs of the district, so.
So all three have the extra day in April after the break.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, it's.
But then it's December, the Friday before we go on break, or the Monday we come back from
Yes.
the
Right.
winter break?
Yes.
Okay.
And that really is the key difference, or putting that third day in October.
Yeah.
Most people want the day in October, clearly. I think the difficult part for me is just that it breaks up 2 weeks, that's all. And we all know it. We get to the October break, we love having the time off as employees. So it's not a hill worth fighting for, to be quite honest with you. It's up to you on how you want these days broken up.
Well, no matter where you put that one, it's going to break up a week, so.
And I think it's interesting that even though education-wise, the October break is proven to not be the best for education, but both the staff that, likes that reprieve and parents that like to vacation in that time that is not a very highly traveled time is still winning out, which I understand that, but I still think if we just went on what's best, that time at the beginning is
Huge.
is the best learning.
Especially with the little ones, that they have to kind of start over in October when they come back. But at least it's been, over the years, it's been reduced.
Otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of,
No. I mean, it's hard with the 3-day because it breaks up, like you said, the 2 weeks. It's like, I guess if you really want to pull the Band-Aid off, you'd have to do 3 days in a row because people do they end up adding to that second week or the first week? They want that whole week, they might take that whole time off, and then there's that second week. Will they extend it further? I don't know. It'd be curious to know how the absence work with the unexcused.
The absences are already coming in for October. We're
Yeah.
not even halfway through September, but the requests are already coming in.
For,
For students and employees.
Wanting extra days somewhere.
so students wanting short-term.
Short-term independent
independence
study program already coming in.
Contracts.
day? Okay.
Not as many as we have at Christmas. That's the only win for moving that one day in December or January.
Right.
It just lessens we're still going to get them. It doesn't lessen the number of requests that we're going to get for short-term independent studies. It just lessens the number of days that folks will be asking for it. So, either way, it is what it is. And I had forgotten my original comment. Please forgive me. I forgot that on all 3 options, we placed that extra day in April so that we had that built-in snow day if necessary. So,
You know, I would be interested, and I don't know if we have the ability or the resources to do this, but now that the attendance has been such a push, if the number of requests are going to increase this school year with people taking advantage of short-term contracts in those other times. We know, I think people were pretty good about the December stuff, but, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
And whether they do the work.
Therein lies the rub.
Most people who take out as short-term, the return rate is much higher. There are people who take it out and don't do the work. They just don't get approved for it again. So.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay. Anything else from the board? All right, 11.2, teacher selection process with Becky.
So every year, Dana Gray and Redwood very kindly have a form available for parents to come in, get a form, and help provide input to who they receive next year as a teacher. Okay. I want to start the discussion of eliminating this practice, and let me explain why. Number one, we have a lot of movement throughout the district, so just because we put teachers' names on a form to say, this is your third grade selection, every year that I have been the superintendent, that form has never held true to match the first day of school. So I've had people in my office saying, I didn't even get any of my 3 choices. And I've had to say to parents, well, actually you did, but then your teacher quit or retired on June 30th, and so whoever walked into that teacher's spot is who you got. And so that's the difficulty, trying to explain to folks that you actually did get your choice, but your teacher moved to a different grade level, or the teacher that you wanted decided to retire, or a number of things. And so because of that shift that happens, the form that we give out to parents for teacher input has never been the same from the time that we distributed the form to the first day of school. And that causes a lot of hurt feelings, because then people feel like, well, you're not even honoring my form. If my first choice wasn't there and you gave me my first choice, I should have had my second choice. Well, then what happens to all of the new teachers who come into the district? Okay, that's the part that I struggle with. What we strive to do, our principals and our staff, is we strive to balance those classrooms. So at Redwood, the kindergarten teachers had a strong hand in placing all of their kindergarten students into first grade rooms prior to that, to the parent input form. And same with first grade, same with second grade. So same at Dana Gray. Dana Gray has a whole system like of points and checks and all, I mean, it's pretty impressive. But the goal is to balance the classrooms. And then beyond that, you have the wonderful small town puzzle of, I don't want my kid with that kid, I want my kid with this kid, I don't want my kid with this person, with the cousin, I want with this cousin, and I'm just making this up, so please no one out there take it seriously, all 3 of our viewers. So the bottom line is that we are holding on to a practice that I don't believe is healthy for our staff, I don't believe it's healthy for the kids, and I don't like the idea of parents thinking that we are purposely not giving them their choice. It puts a lot of pressure on the staff to try and look at this form and try and balance it that way. So I would like to begin the process of ripping the Band-Aid off in our small town and having this discussion out there early, that when we get to May, I would like to switch this up for us to provide a form to parents that says, please list the characteristics that you feel are most important that your future teacher knows about, or what type of attributes in an educator works best with your child. So for my child, my older son, who's now graduated, he thrived with someone who's incredibly structured, because he was not the free spirit that you all might think he was. But he was a very structured person. He needed to know when things were going to happen, how they were going to happen. He didn't like the guesswork. He didn't like a lot of freedom. So I knew that for him. There were teachers that I really loved personally for me, but I knew that that was not a good match for him. And so though that kind of discussion and switching it to what type of attributes is your child most successful with, or let me rephrase that, with what attributes would your child most be successful? And so switching the conversation and not putting, I want this teacher as my first choice, this teacher as my second choice, and this teacher as my third choice.
And
I-
also reminding that that is only a piece of the puzzle, not the only,
Correct.
because again, you could describe your favorite teacher, but
Mm-hmm.
still not get that
Mhm.
because of all those other things you talked about.
And it's interesting because I've had parents come into my office and say, you know, we're really disappointed, we didn't get our first choice. And every time without question, it's because they received a new teacher who they didn't know, they don't know who the person is. And I've said, please just give this person a week. If you're really that disappointed in 3 weeks, please come back and talk to me. And I haven't had anyone come back and talk to me. So I would like to just simmer down those emotions. I would like to take this pressure off the staff. But knowing our community, if I have this conversation with you in May, or I have this conversation with you in February, March, or April, when the expectation is for that form to come out, we're going to have some really hurt feelings here. So I would like to rip the Band-Aid off now, and I'm sure that this part of the broadcast at 8 o'clock on September 12th, watch your YouTube video, that this will get brought up and it will it will show up somewhere. Again, we're just at discussion. This is really not an action item, to be quite honest with you. This is not a policy.
But I thought it was in board policy. There's
Oh, is it in
something in, I
Okay, well, look.
believe,
We need
the
to pull
last
it.
time it came up,
We need to
6,
pull it.
8 year, I think we need to
To look at the board
Look
policy.
at the board
Okay.
policy and
Because isn't
then
there a board
The language
policy
was
on the,
tweaked
on one of the
say
sites.
That, will be considered.
right. it's-
Exactly. It's kind of vague in policy.
Right, but I think it's on the form itself.
on
Oh, that's right.
At
I
one
apologize.
site.
Yes,
Mhm,
yeah.
one of many
So I
factors.
think,
So we would need to adjust that board policy then. So,
Board policy. But what you're saying, I mean, is valid, and it's when it's your first few years in the education process as a parent, it's difficult to give. When you've had that option, it makes it hard for people to think that they're not going to be able to have input. But I like the idea of having a forum to talk about the concrete characteristics of the needs of your student to meeting their educational needs, because oftentimes through my short little attempt of filling out the form, it was excruciating because you're trying to balance your needs as a parent, your needs as for your student, and then kind of having peer pressure, like, I can't believe you've picked that teacher, when you have, there's a lot of emotion to it that doesn't really pan out in the end, because especially with the curriculum that everyone's, pacing similarly, that you're not, you're getting an equal education, and oftentimes you get the form, and it happened my very first year with my first, we didn't have, that wasn't even my choice, what happened? And with the teacher shortage, it makes sense to try to modify the system in some way, because it's a total letdown. And each time I thought, or the other thing that had happened, you liked all 3 choices, and you were heartbroken that you couldn't have all 3. But I like the idea, what needs to happen as we're communicating it, is that give it 2 weeks, really, because I think it is in policy somewhere. I remember reading as a parent that, after, Labor Day, if your kid isn't feeling, or it's not working, it always did. It always worked out.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just know that if it's really not working out, you need to talk to someone about it and get it adjusted. It's not, just give it a try. Because all the students get, it always meshes out and they become a little family, and all the teachers have, I would actually like to have a different teacher for my children each year, because it gives them a better chance in the world to be able to adapt to any personality. Might be not what they need, but they can adapt to someone that is loosey-goosey or has more spontaneity versus structure. So I like the differences that are different than me or my student. So I felt like it would be less stress for me, but I understand that people really want to have a hand on that for their kids.
I like this idea that it really tailors it to your child's needs. And if we're really taking the time to look at that, then we're matching kids up with somebody. I mean, there's some great teachers out there that don't mesh with certain kids. And that goes across the board. So to me, this is a way to ensure that at least most of our kids are going to be in the right classroom. So I think it's a great idea.
No, just as our school administrators, I have complete faith that you'll put together a form that works for your teachers and our families and whatever you guys think is best. I think it's nice we even have the option and make the offer. So,
We'll just need to talk about this a little bit more so we can
yeah, of course.
have the opportunity for people to come in and provide input.
Well, it helps if we do have to amend a board policy. It kind of makes it a more official action that people can
See
come
what
and,
it'll look like.
yeah, give their.
That could be a good
Thoughts?
Thursday morning board.
Yes,
would
board
be.
chat, board
Yes,
chat.
indeed.
And if we could just keep this on the agenda for a few months, because I really don't want anyone to feel like that we snuck this in, and then we pulled it out, and there was no opportunity for input. So I'd like to see this on discussion again in October and in November, and then maybe,
Sorry, there was a big bug flying around. Just hit
Okay, so
Wendy.
then that means the calendar's going for sure, we'll just make notes here. So calendar's going to action next month.
has to, yes.
Teacher selection will stay on discussion. Okay. And then the next one will go on to action too.
I'm fine with it going into action like in either December or January, whichever you feel is best, just so that we give folks a couple of months and no one feels like we are.
Well, we need to do a little bit of research about the,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we gotta do something with the policy. Even,
Well,
I
you
think it
could
was vague, but
bring
it's still.
a suggested change to the policy for
Oh,
discussion.
we could bring samples.
month.
Samples, Mr. Kale.
And then that would be another month of discussion, and then
Right. And people start talking.
We could do another survey. Oh, just kidding.
All right, 11.3, adoption of the new AP Environmental Science textbooks. So we have the rubrics.
We do, and the book has been on display since September 5th. So Kelly popped in, gave a wave, and put the book on display. Pretty neat book, I have to say.
At the district office.
It's at the district office, it's on the display table.
It is there. And I do have to say that, got a little inside information, that she is part of a unofficial consortium, but that's where she got the books to preview from, was, so since she's the only AP environmental teacher, this allowed her to talk to other colleagues about, because the test changed, as Becky said last month. So that was her resource as far as reviewing the books, so.
And will this go into effect this year?
So the test, yes, is changing, and if we adopt it right now, then and you approve it, and the earliest we could approve it is October, then we could get them ordered right now. I think Kelly has enough resources to get through this year, but if we can get them now and she can use them now, then we'll use them now.
Is that that's her preference?
I think Kelly can make it through this year without it, but I'm sure that if we could get it now, then she would use it now.
Is it that quick of a turnaround if we approve in October to get
If
them?
you approve in October, then we would put the PO through, and we would probably be able to get them here by end of November, December. It's pretty quick. It's not bad.
And this is lottery money that's earmarked.
This is restricted materials funds through lottery, so it is not general fund. We can't use this money for other things. And one of the things that Wendy's been really good about has keeping me in line and saying that we just need to do small adoptions every year so that we use that lottery money in its totality and not have to go into other funds to pay for things. So you're going to also see this year potential social studies books from middle school come through. And I think that's the last one. So, but that's why we did the science last year, so we could wait for the new lottery disbursement to come in this year.
Kind of an off question. Do you guys have like some sort of long-term calendar that shows which subjects or books you want to purchase which year?
So believe it or not, how it goes is anytime we adopt something in language arts or math, it's an 8-year adoption. When we adopt in science, it's an 8-year adoption. So that we look at the adoption date, like when you receive the textbooks and you see the adoption date, you count 8 from that. So it's an 8-year cycle.
So it helps you plan and
Mhm.
figure out paper.
And that's why we really try and stagger things out, because you don't want it that every 8 years you're buying everything. We just don't have the money for it. So, and the publishers know that too, which is why they stagger things out.
And they're incredibly
So-
expensive.
Mhm.
I was
So-
noticing we had one book that was published in 1991.
And it depends what
But
book that was.
it was in Spanish. I forget the name of it.
So
I
we
looked
still-
it
we
up.
s-
There's-
So we still have those books. We
Spaniard.
don't use those books
You
because
don't
we have
use
new
them.
Spanish
Oh,
books.
okay.
But because we still have the book
You
and we
have to
hold
put
the
them
book,
on.
it has to be on
Okay,
that.
Gotcha.
So to clarify your background information, Kelly was selected the 2 choices using her group, outside
Mhm.
group out of the district, and did her review of the rubric with them or by herself?
By her, I mean,
Okay,
she
she did that.
talked to them about the
The
books.
rubric. Okay, so
But
she
I don't
kind of.
think
so
they were
kind-
involved. We'd
Right,
have to
but in
ask.
some ways, she probably did get some input from them on her analysis. Because we've always said in the past to have some sort of site coverage, input, just to have a different, it doesn't, just have one person reviewing textbooks.
AP is a different
Yeah,
breed
it
of
is a
cat.
different-
AP is a
exactly,
totally
totally-
different breed of cat because it
totally
goes
get
by
it.
that AP test. There's not a large selection. I know that Kelly was able to use a lot of these online materials last year to kind of vet some of this out. So I've been.
It's unique.
AP is a different breed of cat when we started adopting textbooks because it is 100% driven towards that test, whereas other textbooks, they may be driven for the CASP test, but it's a broader net that you're casting out there.
Gotcha.
There's many more choices.
I gotcha.
AP, we're incredibly
Restricted.
limited.
Yeah, okay,
Plus,
gotcha.
they, like, if you have a language arts adoption, you have a bunch of teachers that are going to be using the
In the
same
department, right,
curriculum,
she's
and
the
so
sole.
This
Right.
is, she's the only one, so it
Right.
wouldn't make sense really for somebody else to try to.
Well, the
No,
only
but-
thing is, luckily, well, I don't think there's going to be a turnover in that position, but if, a newer, or somebody that was going to leave picks a book, but then,
But I mean, it's nice to hear that she was working, collaborating with other folks
Mhm.
that are in that same position, so that's helpful.
it's amazing, I think, what the online is providing for educators, because she's part of this group, and she put out a lab on there, and she got a bunch of people that were super excited, oh, I'm going to use this, and it's validation for their work. So I think it's, there's the teachers pay teachers, and then there's also free things like this, where, our staff can
Utilize
borrow
it.
things and then also get some kudos for their work too, so.
Well, and being
That
a
was nice.
standalone, it's a way to collaborate,
Mhm.
because otherwise you don't have that option ever.
Right.
So
Right.
it's nice.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so that comes back to action next month.
And it'll be 30 days at that point.
All right, so our district branding. So in November of 17, Superintendent Walker brought up whether we should look at our district logo, which if you look on any document or the packet, and I actually have it very large because I've been working on this. So
Yeah.
this is what it looks like, yeah. So the reason it came up is that we as the board would like to have some kind of clothing item. So when we go to back to school night or something that people might know, actually my sister's the one that suggested it. When she saw me at Redwood, she's like, you should have something on that says what you are. So, well, I'd prefer not to have that, but, so what I did is, I had contacted the company that I used to work with at the high school. They have really nice quality things, and the embroidery is included in the price. You don't have to deal with that whole guessing game. So I sent them the logo, and so this is kind of what it would look like if we used this one. So my thought is that to have the district on there, and then where they put names, there's 2 of them, but instead of names, put, Board of Trustees, and then do a department or transportation, open it up for staff, district office staff, so that people that don't work at Dana Gray or middle school or something could have a clothing item that's part of our district. So.
Okay, and let me just clarify that they would buy themselves, optional, that we aren't buying with general fund dollars. Let me just put that out there. Sorry.
Yes, these are done outside of
We'd
school
all be,
district
yeah,
money, yes.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
public
For our own.
funds.
Right. So this is what it would look like. So the question is, the one that was shown in the packet is one that was presented. It has it's a wave and
Oh, we couldn't put it up there.
it's a wave and a whale or dolphin tail, which goes with Dana Gray. But so the idea or the discussion is, is it time to move to a different kind of logo, or do we stick with the old bridge and trees and roll with it?
Could have a contest with our art students.
Or we could open it up and make a contest and you can,
So I just did a tiny bit of research, and there's like 5 points, and they actually recommended not to do that, believe it or not, because it does come back, can get kind of complicated, because you really want to stick with something that only has 1 or 2 colors for printing costs. And so when for whatever reason, these experts, what I read, said it's not recommended to do that. Pick something that will only need 1 or 2 colors. Pick something that's in like a vision of what you do. So like when this was presented the first time, I think I had just come on the board, and what was really brought up was that we don't have the Know Your Bridge. It doesn't look like that. So it is, I don't know where it came from. It's been, a landmark here, but it is probably outdated, you could say. So it said to have, to use a generic, like this water one is very lovely, but when I look at it, I think of maybe Dana Gray, Marine, maybe a rec, a harbor district. It's not what, like when I think of water and kids, it frightens me a little bit. So I would want something that, this was very cheesy, but you could have Fort Bragg Unified in an apple shape. We're into educating students, that's our vision. So we kind of want our brand, or I should say our logo, it's not our brand, to envision what we do here at Fort Bragg Unified. So it feels like it needs to have a conversation with people that maybe do this for a business, but we obviously don't have money for that. So that's why this was lovely to have. This design is beautiful.
and Eve Yeomans had done that. Thank you, Eve.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and it's not, I like the round, because a lot of logos are square, and so I think the new vision is just that circular, which is really easy on the eye. And I just looked at some schools around the county, and then even cities, and a lot of them do have a tree in it. So it's just interesting how if you start looking at people's brands and labels, it's either letters that are shaped into something else or joining 2 letters together. It's very simple. So
It's the trees of learning.
this is pretty busy for like today's standard. When you start looking and analyzing it, it's got a lot going. And so we just need to have it simplified.
Show it again.
There's a lot of layers there, probably more than 1 color. Or black and white. But anyway, that was just my what I had found.
Interesting. I'm just pulling some up online. Every single one's had a tree
Yeah,
or a leaf.
it's very common.
Mhm.
I guess it has something to do with growing students, growing.
Ah.
Roots,
Mhm.
family, stability, life.
Branching out.
Branching
I
out.
honestly don't have a strong opinion either way. It's important to me, I think, that we get something together, and, I think it would be really, really nice for, the employees that aren't tied to a site to have, a common thing that you could purchase on your, and the middle of the year is much better. Well, it's Christmas time, but, like if I had put this together in August, people wouldn't probably jump on the bandwagon, but 'cause they haven't been paid for a while. But,
I like the idea. Wendy, you said that, right? To put it out to art students
to
to.
come up with a.
Yeah, I mean, we have some
And you could
amazing.
have
the
parameters
graphics.
say it needs to be, most 3 colors at the most.
Mhm.
Yeah, have some
And
type
have
but
parameters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
the only thing with contests like that is I worry about, somebody's feelings getting hurt, either, for example, I don't mean to throw the middle school under the bus, but they did one,
Mhm.
and then it got changed a few years later, and I don't know whether anybody may or may not
that student, I think it's a high school student, that was chosen, and then it,
And then
That
who
makes-
votes? You know, if the adults are voting, then I feel like I'm gonna crush a poor kid, you know, that, I don't know. But I know we don't have money, so I'm not sure what the answer is.
Well, there's a lot more involved than just, I mean, it's going to take some work from
Mhm.
you. I mean, there's website. I mean, if we're changing our logo,
some cost, because there's business cards around.
it'll
and-
just be time. And I guess the question is there any interest from staff to change it?
We haven't really discussed it,
Okay.
to be honest with you. We brought it up, like I said, in 2017, to have that discussion, and the discussion went nowhere.
It didn't even really start, just other than the bridge was outdated. But I think there were so many other issues going on at that time that this was just like, we'll just table this for another time, because it just, the priority wasn't there. And it wasn't that we didn't like the logo presented, or it just, there was no discussion. It was pretty much just, no one was ready to
I
talk
honestly
about
didn't
it.
remember that it even happened, so I apparently was paying attention to other things.
That was how quick the discussion was.
Well, we don't need to waste a bunch of time on this tonight. So should we put a couple people together to even look at what it would,
Well, to
be-
me, it kind of goes with our vision and mission, and so when we dial that in to concisely say what our vision and mission is, maybe we'll have a vision from that, you know,
Right.
where we can
Lead us
think of
to
a few that would give us some parameters to have it, if we try to outsource it in our, you know, in our supportive staff or the student body, to see what can be, because it really is someone that has to be doing it for a living, like a graphic designer. I mean, someone that has that hobby in our district that would want to throw out some ideas to, you know, match our vision and mission. So
Sure.
to me, it seems like that kind of falls under the same category. So I wouldn't like to have it go fizzle, because I really do think that we need to update the logo.
because we don't go and have the letterhead and stuff printed anymore.
No, but
It's-
just business
So
cards.
it's not a lot, I mean, it would be business cards
Yeah.
that would be.
And then changing every, you know, all of your, if you've got any form letters, just make sure that that gets updated. But that's, everyone's pretty techie
Well,
now.
we have to change it because well, at least your letterhead, because the board members change.
Mhm.
So that's got to be remembered to do. Okay, so do we want to tack this on to the vision and mission that we're supposed to be
Mhm.
I
dealing
think
with?
that's a
And I
good
would say if
idea.
you want to do any clothing items, you can always just do the district name without a picture.
Right, for now.
Or
Sure.
use it.
Because it's really, we just want a nameplate with exactly, you
could
could
just
just
be
put Fort Bragg
FBUSD,
Unified, just to
yeah.
keep it simple, because the nameplates are pretty inexpensive. Maybe we won't do any clothing until we
Yeah, that's,
figure
we'll
this
get
out.
that when we
Mhm.
brought that too. Okay.
So maybe when you guys go to MIG, another task, you won't be eating lunch, you'll be trying to talk to all these folks, getting good ideas.
Okay. All right, and if anything comes up with anybody from the public or the board members, just let me know. Okay. All right, 11.5, the MCN antenna at the Mendocino Coast Senior Center. So Becky, do you want to?
Well, we have Sage Stratham here who can, Sage, do you want to take the podium and kind of discuss this? So we had a request from MCN earlier in the year. Sage had visited me in the office, I want to say back in May. Was that the first time?
Yes.
Back in May, to have a discussion about placing an antenna on the senior center so that MCN can send out Wi-Fi signal to customers. And it would be over the rooftops. And so at that point, we had asked Sage to do some groundwork for us, like, is there any kind of restrictions from the city? Do we need to find a permit? Do we need to get a permit? Do we, what does it do aesthetically? How big is it? What are some of the specs? What are we looking at? Why the senior center? And the reason why this is coming to us is because you, as a school board, we, as a district, own the senior center. They are leasing it. So if there's going to be something mounted that's going to emit any kind of signal, the senior center is really not in a position to say, yeah, go ahead and use our building and mount what you want. So that's why it came to us.
Sure. So more specifically, in our conversations with the senior center, we discovered that they weren't the building owners, but rather have a 99-year lease from you guys. And they are required to maintain the building and all of it, all the structures, but they are not allowed to rent us space without you guys saying it's okay to rent us space. So that's what we're here to talk about. So when talking about antennas, this is the antenna we're talking about, is the main antenna that we want to put up there. And this is we have one of these up there right now that we're using to send a signal to them. So any Wi-Fi antenna is always a two-way radio in that you download data, you upload data. So everything is two-way. This radio is more specifically a backhaul radio, meaning that it's just going from one point to another point. So we are sending a signal from across town to the senior center, which they then receive on this type of antenna. And then what we're wanting to do is to put up an antenna like this that we can shoot over the rooftops to give to customers, or not give to customers, but sell to customers. And the senior center has a couple of nice things about it. One is you're up pretty high on the hill, you got good visibility to town. The goal of this stuff is not to shoot into people's homes, but actually along the rooftops, because we'll be mounting slightly smaller antennas of this to houses to then receive that signal. And then we'd also like to install the fiber optic backbone to the senior center that would, so that one of the data would flow through the senior center, which is good for them as they're a Red Cross emergency center, so they would have that hard line there as well. So happy to help answer any other questions about it.
So going over the rooftops is a safety issue? I mean, is there?
No, it's just the walls just create resistance to signal. So we'd let, the best signal we can get goes over the rooftops. We don't want to be shooting into people's homes. We want to be shooting a signal over the rooftop so that we get a good signal and then cable down into the house.
Okay. And you chose the senior center because it's high ground in town, or what's?
It's one of multiple. We're going to be installing these in multiple locations in Fort Bragg. We're talking to 6 or 7 different places. So this would just be one of the places that we're looking at.
So the project that you're doing is not dependent on the senior center?
That's correct. It's just one of our preferred locations because it is high, and they have enough adequate room in their building to house some equipment and things like that. Not every, I can't go to just any business in town. Most places will let me throw an antenna like this on the roof. Not everybody has room for a, small refrigerator size worth of equipment. It just depends on the building.
And so how many more customers would you be able to serve?
Well, this is a new product that we have 0 customers on right now. This is it's not even an announced product. So it's one of those that this is, we don't know what the numbers are going to be yet. We're trying to do this in what called a micropop architecture so that the equipment on the senior center would really only serve the people in like the 4 or 5 blocks around it. So you would have, we would hope to have something like this, around Columbia's on Oak Street, for example, and then that would continue to serve the people beyond that.
I see. And it'd be high speed?
Yes, 50 to 100 megabits bidirectional.
And would it be fairly affordable?
Our target is to have 3 tiers, $50, $75, $100 a month for 50, 100, and 150 meg connections. So very inexpensive compared to what we're selling right now.
What's the optimal number of these antennas in town that you're looking to obtain?
The way town lays out, if you look at town proper, we have 2,500 or so buildings in town proper. With an antenna like this, we could put 50 to 100 houses on a single antenna. We'd like to keep it to 20 or 30 just to maintain a good ratio of how many customers to bandwidth we have.
A lot of antennas.
Yeah, and these are this is the omnidirectional antenna. So if we were to split to a sector antenna, it's actually a slightly smaller antenna that we would have 2 on the same pole. One would point like down Harold, and the other one would point down whatever the east-west street is there, Bush, or I forget what the cross street is there.
For
Fir?
Pine or fir.
Pine. Yeah, one of those tree streets versus the tree streets run east-west and the other streets run,
Right.
yeah.
There we go.
It's true.
Yeah.
It,
And then
it's kind
the,
of is logical for us for the tree, but.
Yeah.
You know, most customers would have antennas about this big on their house
Or to obtain.
to get
I
the signal
see.
from this. We're using the larger one on the senior center right now because of the distance to where our equipment is on the other side of Main Street on top of the brewery. So we're shooting all the way across town right now. And so we'd like to shoot shorter hops with smaller equipment so we can use the smaller. And then these antennas can actually go up to 10 miles, but we're trying to get short ranges so that we can get the higher speeds. You know, at 10 miles, you can't get nearly as much speed as you can for 5 blocks at the lower power levels. This is very different from like the cellular. This isn't the 5G that you hear about. You know, this is 5 gigahertz, which is the frequency it's on, which is different from the 5G antennas that the cellular companies are talking about.
So are you guys a part of the school district?
MCN is owned and operated by the school district. We are all school employees. So we are Fund 63 in the Mendocino School District. You know, our funds go back into the general fund. Oop, Tom, take my statin, sorry.
Okay. So you're not a for-profit business?
We're not a for-profit business. We are the Mendocino School District.
You and I had a conversation at one point, though, and you told me that you were a for-profit
We are
business.
we're not a nonprofit. We are like your food program, or we're a really big bake sale. You know, we're not. We are a for-profit business, but we're owned and operated by the school district. We're not a 501c3. You know, we are a school district. It's like I said, it's the same way that your cafeteria sells food to Three Rivers. We are selling internet to customers. Most schools run food programs, and some run printing presses. Those are like the most common school-run businesses. A lot of universities run ISPs, not very many K-12s. Actually, as far as I know, we're the only K-12 owned ISP in the country.
So then the money you do make goes into the school district.
Yes, so we donate right now $40,000 back into the Mendocino's general fund. We've donated over $1 million back into the general fund in our entire 25-year history, and all of our excess profits just go into our general fund to either fund more stuff for the school or fund our ongoing projects.
But
So-
it is an enterprise fund, right?
It is an enterprise fund of the school district, correct?
Which means,
That it's operated more like a business than,
Yes.
Kind of like water and wastewater with the city.
Right.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So what do we have for policy? I mean, I don't want to compare it to a tower, but normally someone could choose to lease like a rooftop and we'd have income from that. I have no idea for a school. If this is something that we need to look into a little further.
I can ask legal. I haven't gone there. I mean, to be honest with you, I had a misperception of MCN. I thought they were a for-profit business. So my initial trepidation with this was that we were going to allow our space, our rooftop, to be used for a for-profit endeavor. And that, I will tell you, that worries me, because I think we need to have very clear lines as a school district on when we allow things to pop up.
Well,
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And which ones we give permission to. It concerns me because whatever you do and whatever decisions you make, in my opinion, you have to be able to replicate those decisions on a very fair and unbiased basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this to Sage from the very beginning. He's been wonderful and done everything we've asked him to do. This makes me nervous.
Right.
Not because I'm worried about MCN. They're a great business.
Sure.
It's MUSD is a wonderful school district. What makes me nervous is, are we opening ourselves up to something else?
Right.
What I appreciated about his request is that the senior center is in a nice location. The back of my mind says, well, is there someplace else you can go so you don't put us in a bind?
We're not the highest building in town.
But it just makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I don't get a vote on this. Lucky people. So it warrants a discussion. I don't know how to advise you on this, and I mean that very seriously. Part of me says, you know, this will be good for the community around the senior center if they want to buy from MCN.
Right.
If they don't want to buy from MCN, then it doesn't have
Any purpose?
any impact at all, with the exception that someone somewhere will say that the waves
Right.
are affecting their health. I mean, it's just going to happen. So I'm concerned. I'm just concerned about what it does for us and what box and can of worms we're potentially opening. And as
we
the
have-
superintendent, it's my job to be a paranoid freak at times.
Sure.
So there's that.
And we don't have a policy. I tried finding something.
I didn't see anything because I think Anna started looking back in May to see if there was something that was
I
going to
couldn't- I didn't see
hold our
anything.
feet to the fire in some direction, and I don't believe she found anything either.
Right.
So,
And really for us, where it came down to was the senior center lease just says that if they're going to rent any space to us, they have to get permission to do it, so.
So are they
Right.
planning on charging you for the space?
No, our plan is to provide free service to the senior center in exchange for use of the space. So we won't be charging them to receive service. They'll get free high-speed internet from us.
and it was interesting because Barry called Jill Rexroad because Kathy had said, hey, there's antennas already on the senior center. Who owns those? And so Barry had called Jill, and Jill said, well, one is for KZYX, one is for ham radio because they are an emergency Red Cross site. And then she said, one is for MCN so that they can sell internet to people. And I said, and then I called Sage and I said, no, wait a minute. You already have it up there? And he said, no, that's their antenna to receive
Right.
the signal, not to send out.
Right.
So it was interesting because Jill's interpretation of it was, no, that's already happened. That was months ago. And it's up. and
We've had test gear up on the roof for a year that they've been trying out how it would work, what the signal looks like across town and stuff like that. But it's not, we have no customers connected to it. We have nobody connecting to any equipment other than the senior center to our own gear across town.
There's definitely FCC requirements, and I think if they are a tenant and they're getting, it's kind of like a satellite dish, you don't have to ask your landlord, can I put a satellite dish on the house?
Correct.
Because they're getting a service.
Correct.
But then it's a whole other, situation when, with this, and they would need to have, our blessing. But I just feel like we need a little direction from someone that specializes in
I
this.
can call legal.
Sure. I can also tell you that the Manchester Elementary and Point Arena High School have similar gear on their schools. They partner with Further Reach down on the South Coast, who is a 501c3. They provide those two schools with free internet in exchange for similar equipment on their rooftops.
Right.
And we aren't really eligible for free internet because we go through the county. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's
So
look
you-
at this for our benefit. I mean,
Sure. So
because our tenant,
you receive, you have a fiber connection to the county, which is heavily supplemented from E-rate. So you're paying probably 1/10 or so of the actual cost of a fiber connection. I think you guys have like a 1 gig connection. I don't know if they've bumped it to 10 gig yet. But it is possible that as this product grows, that we would need to, that we would potentially expand our fiber needs, that we would be able to provide you with those higher speed connections as well.
so I'm only one person. I don't know if everyone else thinks that this should be
Well, I guess
investigated.
my thought is if it's the sort of thing where it's an MOU with the Mendocino School District,
Mm-hmm.
I think opening that can of worms, that would limit any further exposure because we have an MOU with another school district. I think if the senior center or even the middle school can benefit from a direct connection in case of for emergency preparedness from this, I mean, I would like to see the district benefit in some way,
Sure.
not just
So-
the senior center.
Absolutely. So one of the things that, being that we are the Mendocino School District, we provide currently all of the telephones to the Mendocino School District because one of the things we do is telephones. And we've had instances where the county fiber connection was down, and we are able to route all of their phones through our system so that even when it was down, the phones remained up because they were able to go through our system. So there are definitely some benefits to having diverse routes outside of your network.
So I'd be interested to talk to Ari, if there's any benefit at all to having a backup connection or something, I don't know.
Yep.
But
we've
we're,
definitely-
I'm not hearing that if we allow this on the senior center that we're going to get any benefit. the senior center is going to get a
Right.
benefit,
We were just-
not Fort Bragg Unified.
Right, we were just saying, wait a minute.
Is there an
Right.
option?
Is that an option?
Is there a way for us
Yeah.
to get some benefit?
But really, the first thing, that's kind of getting ahead a little bit, we need to find out how we're exposing ourselves and what the process would be and what we should be looking at a lease or an MOU or with who and what.
Okay.
I just feel like we need to have some sort of policy before we proceed.
So our proposed contract with the senior center right now requires your permission to do that, because they have, they've got that building for, I don't know how many years into their 99 years. They're not, I think that was signed in the 80s, so they've still got plenty of years on the lease, far more. We're interested in at least a 2-year agreement with them to say that we'd like to be able to have the equipment up there for at least 2 years, because will be the term of our initial the initial fiber connection that we install to the building is will require us to have a 2-year contract with AT&T. So we want to make sure that we're not kicked out of our contract early.
Okay.
And maybe if, the historical memory is starting to fade, but when those other antennas went up, if we remember what the neighborhood said.
Or was there
I'm
any-
going to
I
say
don't
that
even know
ham
who to
radio has
ask.
been there for a long time.
Yes.
And I don't know about the KZYX antenna. I mean, Laura?
I really talked to me when that happened.
Because then we'll know, is there going to be a huge backlash? Are we going to go through all this and call legal, which is expensive? And then, I don't know if, because again, the senior center, I guess, I don't know who's going to take the fallout. We're not getting any benefit, and we're going to get slammed because.
But I think the question is, once you agree, what does it then, is it going to be practice that you'll have to agree for future
Right.
businesses to have access to?
And we could restrict it with a policy saying we will only, somehow craft it.
Right.
But I would think legal could easily say, do not even start this. Don't go down this road. Or they'd be like, yeah, I totally see it. We can do an MOU and it's pretty clean.
And
They're going to do a thumbs up or a thumbs down pretty initially if it's a
Right.
specialty of theirs.
And again, the one of the things that we're looking at is that, we're looking at the contract with the senior center because they're the ones who are leasing that building, but their lease does require them to have permission to enter in this agreement. So in some ways, that also limits I don't think that immediately means that somebody's going to open up and say, well, the high school's now free game because we allowed the senior center, because we okayed the senior center renting space. I think there is some definite demarcation there. And then I think we might share some legal counsel between the Mendocino and Fort Bragg school districts. So I don't know if there's any, I think we use.
So what would have to happen is that if I called legal about this, from what is we have the same legal services. So Mendocino would have to agree to either not use school and college legal if they have the same question for us,
Or sign a waiver.
or sign a waiver.
Mhm.
And you give me the direction that you want me to take, and I'll do it. I'm happy to call legal, and yes, we do share the same attorneys.
What is the relationship between MCN and AT&T?
We were a customer of AT&T. That's the only relationship.
And so how does the phone system, you said down in Mendocino, all the school phones are on your system?
Yes.
And so they're not, I'm just thinking about, we had a situation where the fiber optic cable, I don't know if it got cut or what happened, but
Mhm.
we had no phones in the district, we had no internet, we had,
Right.
That was everybody. That was when the CommShi line
That
got
was-
cut. That
Yeah.
was
Well, there's
Or Hopland.
Sure. So there's several different situations you could be referring to. So there has been in the last 5 years, but there's been 2 fiber cuts. One in CommShi and one in Ukiah, where someone was trying to steal copper and cut through the fiber, which was stupid because it's fiber, not copper. But the fiber that from Fort Bragg routes to Mendocino. From Mendocino, it goes along the CommShi-Ukiah Road, actually to Boonville, and then from Boonville to Ukiah, and Ukiah down to Hopland, down into Santa Rosa. south, there's a separate fiber path that goes from Mendocino to Manchester, and then Manchester actually has one of the Trans-Pacific fibers that goes to Hawaii, because Manchester is actually one of the most westerly places, so it's one of the closest paths to Hawaii. So you actually have quite a bit of fiber leaving the county through Manchester that no one realizes driving through Manchester. The fiber connection that you guys have goes through that same connection over to Ukiah. The fiber connection that we have goes through that same connection to Ukiah. We have, in Mendocino, we have purchased from AT&T a secondary route that goes through the Manchester route, so that our phones were out in the last 2 fiber cuts. We're now, after the second one, we finally said, okay, this is obviously a problem. And we managed to get a diverse route so that, in theory, right now, if there was another fiber cut, we wouldn't go down.
I gotcha.
Which is then separate. Those are the 2 big incidents that were like the one was 48 hours, one was, I think, only about 27. The second issue that has happened is like your fiber connection goes to the county office, and the county has had problems with their fiber connection. They had a router failure a couple months ago that that brought the whole system down as well. So in that case, the internet was down, but we were able to route the phones through our separate connection that did not go through the county, and managed to keep the phones up and running.
And so by your putting this, will the senior center have that capability?
Yes. Yeah, so the senior center already uses our telephone service. They have both Fusion copper telephone lines as well as our digital phone service.
Well, I think we just need to, or it sounds like I'm hearing that we need to look a little bit into, I guess, the
Agreement?
and what's,
Future ramifications?
And any benefit that our district can get from this, if any.
Right. And of course, we're, being a neighboring school district, we're happy to, I know I think in May when I was in to meet with Becky, I'm pretty sure that your guys' phones were down from AT&T at that point. So it's one of those that the next time that contract comes up, we'll be happy to, when that RFP goes out, to give you guys a proposal for phone service as well.
So I'm happy to call legal and do a little digging, and then I think what we need to do is we need to have Ari in the room present for this discussion.
Good idea.
And then just maybe if there's any historical archives at the district office to know, I mean, that all might have just happened with the handshake, I don't know, there were other antennas.
probably.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
But it'd be nice to
where
have
look
documentation.
To look for when those antennas got on the senior center.
I have no idea.
Before computers.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that most of the stuff that went up,
Just
no one
was-
bothered to ask.
Or just did it.
We're just
yeah.
bothering to ask. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sign
so
of our
moving
times.
forward, I am going to call legal about jumping into this endeavor and what it means and how that looks and what we would need. And then I'm going to have a conversation with Ari Rule, our tech director.
'Cause maybe there's a policy out there that he knows about.
Okay.
Well, but I think it's 2 separate things. I think the
Yeah.
RE conversation is whether we can benefit from MCN.
Especially in emergencies, like that's kind of where I'm,
That's,
senior center's close to a big site of ours, and, is there any way we can connect and get some sort of backup something?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those that, our goal is to have, like I said, multiple of these in basically a ring network throughout town, so that if, and we'd like to, we're just going to start off with a single connection from AT&T, but at the, eventually we'd like to have a, second connection from Comcast or another provider, so that even if someone did have a major outage, that we would be able to diversely route out, and then hopefully all of our customers would be able to benefit from that, including yourselves.
Because it's giving permission for the senior center to give you permission
Correct.
to, so, I mean, I'm sure the
Three
stuff that's
layers.
on there is not,
Documented.
it's old, and things were done with a handshake. So, and the question, or a question is to, are we going to you know, is it, like Scott said, is it, we're gonna do this because it's MUSD and MCN, and that's gonna be kind of our
Baseline.
right, that's our, we're not gonna say yes to a bunch of other people. You know, those, I think those are the things. Well, I'm a little hesitant to spend our dollars on, but I don't know what else to do. I don't think it's, I don't know if it's a legal, I don't know if it's a legal issue, except for the backlash that we could possibly get. And I don't even know if
Well,
anyone's
how do you
gonna notice that
document
little.
it? How do you document it to know that, you know, someone's gonna have to prepare an MOU, and I'd rather have an attorney do that than.
Right. And as far as backlash goes, like I said, we've had test equipment up there for over a year and no one has said anything. So I don't think there's any
Including us.
immediate backlash. And, you know, a lot of the, you know, the FCC requirements for intent, you know, all of our equipment, of course, is FCC certified that they're putting out the proper signals and the proper power levels and the proper interference and all those other things. And, you know, the most recent FCC decisions actually have limited state and local governments' ability to even regulate what, you know, where people place antennas in an attempt to actually push more of this, allow more of this stuff out. Really, the only thing they're allowed at this point to do is like, you know, cities can define aesthetic guidelines of, you know, they want antennas that are, you know, not higher than the tallest that a building can be built, and they need to be backset from the roof, or they need to be painted to match the surroundings and things like that. But they're actually very limited on being able to say, no, you just can't put it there.
Well, if you would like me to call legal, I will call legal. Or if you want to wait till next month and talk about it again, and you can think about it.
I think it'd be great if Sage and Ari could have a conversation.
Mhm.
I think a phone call would be okay. I think anything
Mhm.
more, we'd have to get
sure.
agreement that our legal costs would be covered, like if we had to have legal do an agreement, but I think a phone call is.
A phone call to legal costs, those are all billable hours.
Totally, but I mean, you
Right,
could
right,
ask them, don't prepare anything, but your initial gut, I mean, if it.
Oh,
if it
just a
costs
phone
you-
call to have a conversation.
Yeah, if you have
I'm
a
with ya.
10-minute call
Okay.
and just say,
Yes.
what do you think, thumbs up, thumbs down, because they'll know right off the bat.
Big red flags or,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, that's not gonna
That'll be
go
fun.
crazy. You're not
And
gonna
I'm
say
just going to
prepare
warn you, I know this is going to be a big shocker, but legal always has red flags, so.
something. I mean, but there's a level of, you know,
there's a
spectrum
brightness
of
of
red
red.
flags.
There's a brightness of red.
right, could
Is
be
it double
bloody red
red?
or just a pinkish red or.
Right.
That was the sunset.
Oh,
And do you guys use Best and Krieger as well? It's another one that we use for technology-specific legal questions, so.
Who?
Best and Krieger, it's another law firm, okay.
Because it is kind
Just
of a
clearing up
specialty.
lawyers.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good with that? She's gonna give
Okay, I'm
legal
going to do a call, but nothing prepared. Okay.
Okay,
And
so
I'll
then my
also
question
ask
is, you
Ari
know,
to talk
do we
to
want to come back next month, or if there's no red flags, is it okay for Becky to just give us the go-ahead to move forward with the senior center?
I'm not comfortable with that, I'm just going to
Yeah.
be really honest with you.
Right, no,
Sure.
I'd like to have it come back as well.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
Sage.
That's
between
okay,
a phone call with legal
Unfortunately, we
and.
can't have a conversation, yeah,
Right.
that's not here.
correct.
Sorry, and I don't feel comfortable because
It's unknown ground. really.
I do not want to be the one to make a decision on yay or nay without an open public discussion, which is why I don't want it done without the board present.
And let's try to, you know, because I'm sure this is time sensitive at some point, but if we believe it needs some kind of action, that we move it up on the, you know, not bring
On
it
the
back for
agenda.
discussion again, and then, so we'll
Yeah.
do our
Mhm.
best to, whatever needs to happen if we're gonna move forward to get it done next month. So
Right.
that you guys aren't waiting months
Which
and
is, I
months and
believe
months.
you guys have October 10th as your next.
October 17th.
Because of the holiday, or
Holiday, okay.
October break,
Right.
sorry.
it's like a holiday now.
Okay, so we're good?
Yes.
So
Okay,
we have
thank you
Ari-
very much for
Thanks for
staying
waiting.
so
Yeah.
late
No,
for
no,
that.
of course.
Okay. Okay, and I think we can finish in 8 minutes, or wait a minute, that's 5,
Yeah, 8 minutes.
okay, right, because we have to go, we have to make a
Thank
motion
you,
if we're going
Sage.
after 8, right?
N-
9, or is it 10?
It's 10.
Jerry's not here
We're
for the
good.
time watcher.
No,
was 10,
it's
yeah.
10.
It's 10, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I thought
We have
last
lots
time
of
we made a
time.
motion.
Yeah.
So we were here after 10 that night? Oh,
was an hour, 50 minutes. I'm keeping track of this time. We spent about 50 minutes on this policies.
Yep.
Oh, that name.
That's
Okay.
what pushed us over.
All right, so that is through information and discussion. The next thing is the advanced planning, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, I have a couple things that I have notes about. Does anybody else?
I just have a couple questions.
Okay.
They're heavy.
So we had talked, I believe at agenda setting mentioned, and I wanted to bring it here, about if we wanted to do a special meeting and split out the,
The emergency plans and the
Right,
discretionary
safety plans,
funds,
mhm.
right?
or are we gonna leave them all in the October meeting and have it potentially be longer? And feedback from the principals would be.
October 17th, we have a principal support network training in Ukiah, so we'll be coming back. We could be here by
But see, the thing is that all those documents would be submitted by the 10th. So,
So
Which she's
just
talking about
start
physically,
presenting.
yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering if we're all going to be in Ukiah and then we're going back.
you're going to drive back anyway.
She doesn't have to come all the way to town, though.
I'm okay with this, a special meeting to do the safety plans. I don't think will take long. They never have. It's a pretty check mark kind of, and this discretionary budgets aren't that lengthy. I'm wondering though,
And when's the cast data coming?
that's the one that we need to have the special meeting for because
Okay.
I
Those are the two things I have.
I don't think the dashboard is going to be open until sometime in October, and I don't know exactly when that is. So I would say if we're going to have a special meeting, we should have a special meeting in November for that.
So
And
that's-
that would also be the benchmark time, because the first benchmark should be coming out, the administration of that should be sometime in October. So doing a special meeting in November to do CASP data, the dashboard rollout, and doing the first benchmark, to me, that makes more sense, that we have our special meeting in November.
So on our old
We already have
calendar,
one.
We already have one in November?
Yep,
well, and that's on Thanksgiving.
the
So,
21st.
okay, the 21st, because it's 28th on this form.
We have one
Um,
down for the 21st, and then, of course, our regular one the week before.
I have October 24th and November 21st, I guess. So we want both?
So that one says the October 24th one was supposed to be budget.
Mm-hmm. And then benchmarks
Oh.
November, it's at the 28th, which was Thanksgiving.
October 24th is supposed to be budget. Is that supposed to,
I think it was just, this was back in probably December, last December, when we were trying to predict what our life would be like.
oh, and is it down as a special or a regular?
A special
Special.
for budget.
Is that something?
When? I was looking.
October
October
24th.
24th.
But I have no idea what our priorities are for these.
Well, and then we also have tried to deal with the vision and mission. I mean, that's, you guys are supposed to check on that this week or next week.
Yep.
Next weekend.
I mean, I think we
Um,
want a special meeting in December.
I don't
Or-
have a special board meeting marked in
For October.
Do you want a special board meeting
This-
for October to talk about budget?
Do I want?
Well,
Do we
I
need?
think the idea behind that, when we did this in December, if I'm trying to jog my memory here, I think the idea behind it was that if we were looking at projections for the following year and it was going to be really lean, that we were going to start looking at how to make those adjustments early so it wasn't a big
Shock.
shock to folks, and that we could have discussions on that. And as of right now,
Yeah, so I would say, so first interim is going to be presented at the December 12th board meeting. If it turned out that things were looking, dicey for some reason, which I don't necessarily anticipate, we could look at the 21st of November, maybe, but that's like 2 weeks in a row.
well, the 21st of November is already earmarked for a special meeting.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
already
Yeah.
on the books.
Benchmark and. So basically, we're trying to figure out if we need the October, which sounds like we don't.
I don't know if
Or-
we do, to be honest with you. Would, Mr. Kale and Ms. Vieira, you're in the audience, would you prefer to have a special meeting for those two things? I mean, I think we can do those two things in under an hour from all the sites. What are your thoughts?
If we give people time limits that they adhere to, I think we could.
She's looking directly at me.
She
Yes, I will adhere to that.
Seriously, the
But
discretionary.
not do the CASP. and
I
the-
don't know if the CASP is gonna be ready by then. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
It could be ready, it could not be ready. I haven't received any emails saying that the dashboard is going to get rolled out on a certain date yet. And it's not out right now. And
Is
then
the
once it
October one
is
in the
open, it
calendar?
takes me a good,
Oh, I do see that now, yeah, the 24th.
Yeah, I mean, these are in, just
It
proposed. It's not.
Why, it's
Probably
really
takes
hard
me-
for us to pick dates, so why don't we leave them on there? Maybe if, I
oh,
would,
that's a good idea. And
I
then
would,
at
or
the
I would,
October
if we want to
meeting-
take off the October one, because that's only a month from now.
Well, no.
But you
month
could
and a
decide
week.
at the October 17th meeting if you
Mhm.
want to
That's only
keep
a
it.
week later.
Yep.
But the November one, I'm kind of thinking we need to leave on our calendars.
Absolutely. The November one, I think, needs to be the benchmark day and CASP day anyway.
Mhm.
So that's a good time for that.
Mhm.
Okay.
So November 21st, administrators.
Okay.
And then when's the next emergency?
And that, I wrote that down. So Barry had sent an invite, and I didn't look to see who was all on the invite, but I would really prefer us not to be in the same situation we were in this month with having nobody from the board there.
And I already responded.
Okay.
Because I went to the first one. I told him I couldn't go to the next one, but I responded to this.
Okay,
And the next
so,
one is October 30th.
Yeah.
yes, at 3:30.
October 30th.
So do we have a second person that would like to go?
Scott?
Sure.
Well, I'm fine with it
Yeah.
not being you, but you had expressed specific interest in that.
Yeah, only because I
Right,
did it for
so-
the city. and-
Right, which
Yeah.
would be good.
Okay. 3:30 on the 30th.
Yes.
And then the only other one I had was the wellness meeting. Were they going to meet again in September, October? It was like 3 or 4 times.
I can ask.
Yeah, I
We
mean, I know
haven't-
that's not high priority, but I mean, I'd hate to have, if we're going to do it twice a year, we should probably get it on the calendar
We are having a Tennis Shoe Tuesday
coming up. Okay.
Excellent.
Those meetings, how long are those? An hour? Emergency?
We had it, I believe it was right at an hour, wasn't it?
I think so.
All right, that's, I mean, it's not like a 3-hour.
No.
And the first one, I think, was only 45 minutes, because I read the
Mhm.
minutes.
Yeah,
So
it
it sounds
was.
like everyone's being mindful of time.
Great.
Okay, and then, do you guys want, really quick, do you want me to get these, this is the official, the first lanyard, do you want me to get these made and have us pay for them? They were, I think they're like, I don't know, $3, $4? I mean, you take out the 4, but this is when I was running for school board. But just our
Yeah,
name and then.
Sure,
Yep, I think
That's
that's a
nice.
great idea.
Okay,
until we
and
can,
we can have these made locally, so that
oh, that's nice.
teamwork can do them.
And
pretty
we
cheap.
will, let us know what we owe.
Okay.
Are those
I'll
the
let-
magnetic ones?
Yes.
Yeah, those are nice. Poking holes in
Oh.
your
Right.
Oh, I see.
And then, yeah, and then I thought we could just leave them on this and then,
Mhm. So Scott needs one of these lanyards.
We will
Which
get
I
you
have,
one.
they
Yeah, I have
have,
to find out where my picture is.
Oh, picture day is Monday at the
Well, I
high
got
school.
it, I did it on registration day.
At the high school.
Oh, then Patty probably has it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure she does.
okay. All right, so any dates, we are trying to push things out on the calendar. Can we eliminate Becky from going to maybe a Three Rivers?
she has a conflict that day, or no,
I
you?
do have a conflict on the
Yeah, I was gonna say-
October.
No,
September.
September. The October's not on here.
Oh, what's the September one?
Tuesday,
Yeah,
the 17th.
tiny.
What, there was something going on. Let me check, look at my calendar.
League of Women Voters, but I don't know if that was during the day or.
Friends of
Oh.
Messina were getting together that day. You said you couldn't go.
Why couldn't I not do that? Oh, there's a DLAC meeting that day. It's our district English learner advisory committee meeting. I would like to attend that.
At night?
It's
That's
five,
next
it's,
On the
oh,
15th,
that's the
not on
24th,
there.
that's right.
Yeah,
Hold
I
on,
was
let me
gonna
look at
say,
17th,
I was
sorry.
gonna go to that.
No,
Why
that's
is
on our
my
calendar, too.
mouse giving me a hard time? The 17th, League of Women Voters. I can't do it that day.
Okay.
I'm presenting at the League of Women Voters.
Wait, you're in September.
Right, September 17th.
Aren't we looking at
If you-
October?
No,
Oh, my
If
bad.
you look
I'm
at,
on this
Okay.
list.
if you look at the Three Rivers agenda and you think there's something on there that one of us should attend, I'm happy to, if there's a topic. that we can-
It's really not even about a topic. It's just being present,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Just
Because every time I've gone, I've never thought that the agenda had anything on there.
And something always comes up.
But as of late, especially with,
I'll go.
breakfast in the classroom and
I am just taking them for the team around here.
we could assign
Um,
Jerry, he's not here.
Okay, I'll go next Tuesday.
I think they'd like to meet you.
You know what,
That'd be really
Kathy,
good.
I'm going to ask you to not go to that next Tuesday and go to the League of Women Voters. You're our president.
So I think I might be able to go.
Okay.
So what time is that event?
It starts at 6, but I can come by and pick you up.
Or I could go there for half an hour and then meet, where is it? Is it in Mendocino? 'Cause the
It's in
others-
Casper.
That's not that far. Okay, we'll work that out. All right. Okay, the rest of the stuff, we've got DLAC the following week.
So we're gonna try to do both.
Yeah, can somebody,
I was going to go to DLAC.
okay. At least, if we can just at least have one. And Anna's pushing this stuff out, but I don't know if anybody's using it. Like, I did some stuff today. I got the response from you guys. 'Cause,
Right for the morning.
yes. But again, I just would like to have one of us at these events, yeah. I mean, open house, we figure everybody's going, and we're not standing together, so I think we can get away with, us all being there, but,
We can be at,
you can, but I don't,
yeah.
if we can at least get one. Okay, and so
Yeah.
the rest of the things, I think, are, I'm on Dana Gray's Parents Club. I try to make them, but I'm also trying to take care of my health right now, so I'm going to exercise class now.
High school financial aid night, is that something
That is super fun.
to go to?
I just used to do them.
I bet I'd find it interesting.
Now, parent night for Fort Bragg High School, that's the old report card night, basically, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they did it that week because that's homecoming week. So if we had a school board rep here, we would, if we had a student rep is what I meant, they would say, hey, homecoming week begins September 30th. The theme is arcade games. And they actually they chose to do parent night in the middle of homecoming week because they wanted to invite parents on campus during homecoming week to see,
That's great.
to see the
Oh,
halls,
yeah.
and then they could talk to teachers and
Oh, I love that.
and
Smart
then they can
move.
do grades and so forth as well. So I thought it was
Nice.
pretty smart.
I like it.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else have any notes? Got my sticky note taken care of?
Are we going to continue that calendar like we did last year where we all put in our X's?
No,
or-
because
no?
people weren't using it.
Okay.
So we're supposed to be using the Google
And looking at it.
invites.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then when you
As they
see
come
when you
out.
select that event, it shows you who the attendees are.
And somehow when Anna gets back and on her feet, this stuff shows up 2 and 3 times on here. It's driving me bonkers.
Well, because isn't it the darker color if you've accepted it? But it's the lighter one stays?
It depends on what
It
calendar.
It shows,
attached
yeah,
to
and if you unclick one, then certain
It shows
things
up
go
double
away
on mine,
and.
too.
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause
I've,
it's showing the
there's a
sites,
dark blue, yeah,
color.
we don't have to talk
I
about
don't
that
know,
now,
it's
but
just-
it's late, but I just,
on
my
my
calendar is very full without that, and then you add anyway, it's,
Yep. When you look on the phone, that's insane.
okay, anything further? Alrighty, motion to adjourn, please.
Since he's not here, I'll do it in his honor. Motion to adjourn.
I
Hope you feel
second.
better, Jerry. 9:06.
Feel better.
Did
I'm
you
sure
get
you
those,
watched the whole
Wendy?
meeting.
I did.
Scott, or whoever's got the notes. Okay, 9:06. Thank you very much, everybody, for staying. Mr. Kale, drive safe. Laura, you have a little bit of a drive out there.
And thank you, Sage.